is the lower car park. In the event of a medical emergency, please alert council staff for assistance. Now, ahead of the start of National Reconciliation Week from the 27th of May to the 3rd of June, I'd like to invite Uncle Richard Edwards to deliver a welcome to country. Uncle Richard. You can come up here. Wherever you like, really.
Good evening. Now, I'll be saying an acknowledgement to country in our reclaimed Wanneroo language, mainly because there's 3 linguists bringing our language back for us, and so far they haven't found a word for welcome in Wanneroo. Some people were using the word Anagunya and saying that was welcome in Wanneroo. It's welcome in Guttung and a few other languages, but it's not welcome in Wanneroo language. In Wanneroo language, it means, what are you doing here? So I won't use that one. So here we go. It's the linguist put this together for us. It's Nayan, Maruku, Pran, Wian, Wanneroo, Miramalikan, Parani, Parakupa, Nachan, Nayan, Maru, Wian, Narakai, Parapa, Yurakai Kal, Panyakal, Nachan, Kupakal. Now in English that means we acknowledge the Wanneroo people, traditional keepers of this land, and we pay our respects to their elders past and present. Now, I'll ask for a minute's silence, and during that minute's silence, think about where your mob comes from and some of the stories you've been told about by your parents, because that's also part of your story. We'll have 1 minute's silence if that's okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Uncle Richard. National Reconciliation Week is a time for all Australians to learn about shared histories, cultures, and achievements, exploring how each of us can contribute towards reconciliation. This year's theme, All In, calls for all Australians to commit wholeheartedly to reconciliation every day. For ways you can recognise National Reconciliation Week, head to Council's website where you will find events that you can participate in. Now I'll move on the Council agenda. I've got prayer led by Pastor Rachel Main. Pastor Rachel. Could all stand for the prayer, please?
Good evening, everyone. Let's pray. Lord, I thank you for the opportunity for us to pause and reflect in the middle of a busy week and also before the important work of considering tonight's agenda. Lord, tonight I'd like to pray for our incoming General Manager, that you would bless her as she begins to prepare for serving our city in this new role and everything that goes along with that. And we also pray for our outgoing General Manager for the work that's been contributed over his term. Lord, I pray, as always, that you would give a blessing, bring a blessing over every heart and every home in our beautiful city, and also over those who come here for work and play. And finally, Lord, as always, I pray for a spirit of unity over tonight's work, because your word promises that where there is unity, there you command a blessing. And so we pray your blessing over tonight's proceedings. In the name of Jesus, amen.
Thank you, Pastor Rachel. Now, noting that we have no apologies, no leaves of absence, no AV link, confirmation of previous minutes for both minutes, moving Councillor Lee, seconded Councillor Harrington. All in favour? It's unanimous. Any disclosures of interest? Did both. Councillor Hill.
Thank you, Mayor Watton. I, Councillor Mitchell Hill, will be declaring the following interest in regards to report number WI7 2026, the Sustainable Communities, Tidy Towns Grants and School Environment Grants. This interest is a non-pecuniary interest significant conflict for the reason that I am employed by one of the grant applicants. I will be leaving the chamber and taking part in no discussion or voting.
Thank you, Councillor Hill. Any other disclosures of interest? No, moving on to englobo voting list. There's someone to move. Councillor Hill.
Thank you, Mayor Watton. Having read and considered the reports in the agenda related to items GMU 1 2026, the Cessnock City Council Union Picnic Day, CC 29 2026, disclosures of interests in written returns, CC 30 2026, resolutions tracking report, CC 31 2026, investment report for April 2026, and CC 34 2026, the monthly financial report, that Council adopt the recommendations as printed in the business papers for those items.
And someone to second, please. Councillor Lee. All in favour? It's unanimous. No mayoral minutes from myself tonight. Any motions of urgency to be tabled? No motions of urgency. Now moving on to business items to be discussed, starting with PE3/2026, the Nulkaba Urban Investigation Area Draft Structure Plan. Councillor Jode.
Thank you, Mayor. I have an alternate motion that I'd like to put up first, which I sent out to all councillors. Do you still want me to read it out, or?
I think for the sake, like for people listening at home, just for,
Yeah.
if you could please.
Okay, alrighty. Make sure I've got it all down the right one. That Council 1 receives and notes the Nulkaba Urban Investigation Area Draft Structure Plan and supporting documents. That 2 does not endorse the proposed smaller lot size, specifically rejecting any medium lot size below 2,000 square metres or currently rural village controls in the Nulkaba Urban Investigation Area to preserve the existing rural village character. 3 requires that any future development in the Nulkaba Urban Investigation Area must be subject to a contribution plan that ensures 100% cost recovery for all required infrastructure, including roads, intersections, open space, water, sewerage and community facilities, with no residential cost or ongoing maintenance burden falling on existing ratepayers. 4, that the director that any future directs that any future planning proposals for the area must demonstrate full servicing feasibility, including confirmed tunnel water capacity and protection of rural village character prior to any gateway determination. 5, authorises public exhibition of the amended structure plan incorporating 2 to 4 above for a minimum 28 days for specific notification to all residents in the Nulkaba and surrounds. And 6, request a further report to council on the outcomes of the expedition, including a full independent cost benefit analysis and infrastructure funding guarantee.
Someone to second that report. Councillor Harrington. Seconded. Okay. Councillor Jode, would you like to speak further?
I might hold off on my on right of reply. Yeah, do I get to speak twice? If I talk now, I can do a right of reply. I've got to hold off. Yeah. Okay. Oh, what? I can talk. Oh, I can speak twice. Oh, I'm getting confused here. Okay. Okay, so after the presentation that was given before, it has actually piqued my interest a little bit more with the smaller lot sizes when we had the planner come in and speak about roughly where these 750 square metre blocks will be, with it being adjoining to close to the jail. I'm quite concerned about doing those smaller lots. Residents from Nulkaba buy in that area for the reason of rural villages, and if we allow the smaller lots in certain areas, it could become an issue. So we've already seen the consequences of this happening in other areas like Belbur North, where major development was approved with the premises of developer-funded infrastructure, yet council is still spending millions upgrading Wallenby Road years later. We've seen Cessnock housing expanding rapidly, yet our supermarkets, sporting fields and community facilities have not kept pace. Our roads are struggling. Schools face serious pressure, including new preschools being currently built. And I'm not seeing us keep up with the traffic plans when it comes to those, as I can see there's going to be issues already. In Nulkaba, traffic issues at the Nulkaba Primary School and St Phillips are already significant. Our school traffic desperately needs a major overhaul. When these new schools open, the situation will become even more dangerous, with a real risk of accidents during drop-off and pick-up times. Adding hundreds more homes in Nulkaba will only make this worse. The social impact assessment in Closure 4 itself acknowledges the potential strain on schools, local health services and community infrastructure from additional housing. The traffic and transport study in Closure 5 highlights the need for significant road and intersection upgrades, yet the strategic plan pushes ahead without ironclad guarantees that existing ratepayers will not pay. Nulkaba is valued for its quiet, semi-rural village character and larger lot sizes. Residents deliberately purchase into the lifestyle, including the 750, will permanently urbanise the area and destroy the character that defines Nulkaba. The social impact assessment notes strong community concerns about smaller lot sizes and loss of sense of place. While the the structure plan does not rezone land today, it's become the official policy foundation for future rezoning. Council would be pre-approving a major expansion, in my opinion. More density means more vehicles, more congestion on Wine Country Drive, and greater emergency evacuation risks during flood or bushfire events. Council has not yet demonstrated that the transport network can safely absorb this growth. For those reasons, I've moved this amendment instead of the original motion.
Thank you, Councillor Jode. Councillor Pascoe.
Thank you, Mayor Wotton. Just a quick question. Reading from the original motion, this is again just putting something out on public exhibition. Am I correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So at the moment, we're not saying that we're subdividing all of the area in Nulkaba to be these specific things. We're putting it out on exhibition to get feedback and develop the plan further from there.
That's correct.
Yeah. So I'll be going with the original motion, I believe.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Pascoe. Councillor Hill.
Thank you, Mayor Wotton. I just had a few points to discuss on this topic myself. I do share some of the thoughts raised by Councillor Jerd. A lot of my concerns also come from the additional pressures that council would find within, and that was shown in the public briefing held prior to this meeting, around the demand for additional infrastructure and services alongside any additional housing yield within the URA. That in line with the community sentiment around the reduction in lot sizes or the increased density in the area, I think probably lean me towards being more in favour of a larger lot minimum, be it the 1,500 square metres or 2,000 square metre minimum, as outlined in some of the slides for, I think it was scenario 5 that we saw in the briefing. I believe that along with the the development of an additional Nulkaba URA contribution plan, which makes an argument for 100% apportionment, whether or not that's successful when with IPART or not, I think helps to alleviate the amount of infrastructure and services required within the URA by sort of aiming for a reduced yield. I'd also be curious if there is any information available from staff around what the current years of supply is for lifestyle lots within the LGA currently. Do we have that information?
Put that through to Manager of Strategic Planning.
Lot is 8 years, where the growth management plan requires a 15-year supply, so we're about half the supply that we would normally have.
Some commentary from the General Manager.
Sorry, and I'm unsure. I just need to make the point that 750 is the minimum lot size that exists within the current Nulkaba area as well. So we're not proposing to introduce something that's smaller than what currently exists. These are the ranges that exist in the existing area of Nulkaba.
And sorry, I probably should have put this forward when you asked the strategic planning manager as well before, but what's the current years of supply for our, I guess, more commuter urban, smaller lot size areas within the LGA?
Yep, go for it, Manager.
Through you, Mr Mayor, the commuter urban is on the cusp of 15 years.
Yep.
We are looking at that at the moment. And the other categories also down to around 8 years.
Yep. Okay.
Which we're looking at the moment through the Soy Gully investigation area.
Yep, excellent. With some of those points, I do find that, especially myself being a councillor in Ward D, dealt with quite a large amount of the commuter urban type development, and Head and Greeter itself, I think, suffered from a lack of a type of structure plan that's being presented here in its historical development, in a number of individual developments popping up without any kind of overarching structure applied to it. So I definitely see a great need for the plan itself. However, noting as well Councillor Pascoe's commentary, this is just an initial, it's initial put out for additional feedback for the community. It's definitely not an initial plan. There's been a lot of work being put into this. But I'm also curious to see what the additional feedback from the community is around that. I do note the commentary around the minimum lot size in the area currently being 750 square metres for a lot. However, I would probably argue that's not currently the standard for what lot sizes are in the area. That may be the minimum lot size, but there are definitely a lot of larger lots in the area that I think the community has come to expect that of the area, not what the current minimum lot size is that's applied to it. So generally, I would be supportive of something similar to the original motion if it had the removal of the 750 square metre lots. I don't really know that a lot of the points in Councillor Jurd's motion that has been moved are entirely very different to what was in the original motion. I don't know if there's too much difference between the two, but I am interested to see what would come back from the community at the end of the day as feedback for this structure plan.
Thank you, Councillor Hill. Councillor Jurd, your question? Just be careful not to use your right of reply just now.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Through you, I want to ask the General Manager. We were speaking a little bit about this prior, but I want to know, for residents of Nulkaba, if they see this go out on public expedition, how do they make sure that they don't get 750 square metre blocks in a huge area right near the jail? How many residents would it take for this to come back and be changed? Because a lot of times when things go out onto public expedition, they come back, we might have a few comments, we've adjusted it, but then the plan still stays the same. So I just kind of want to know, how hard is it for the residents to change it?
General Manager?
Thanks, Councillor, Mr Mayor. And can I be, it sounds a little enough to convince 7 councillors that the numbers need to change. In saying that, if you were to change the numbers proposed here, there's a lot of background work we're going to have to go and do immediately, and we'll have to update the transport traffic studies and look at what impacts that may have. We need to look at some of the yields and the infrastructure, and so there's a lot of work that we would need to do if you were looking to change, notwithstanding that an applicant might still choose to propose a a rezoning at some point with lot sizes that are different, that would come to the council with recommendations from staff, recognising that this would be, and this is why we're suggesting at the higher level, a structure plan and is to set the tone and the principles for what. But in terms of the response from the community, one, they need to be engaged, and two, they need to make sure they make submissions. But ultimately, whatever comes back to the council is a matter for the council and the majority of the council to make those.
Sorry, to make it a submission that counts, because that's something that I've heard a few times. How do they make their submission count?
Well, I mean, in each of these circumstances, submission will count, and would be, my anticipation in this one would be, would be reported back. I expect that there will be, generally what we've been doing as a past practice prior to my arrival was where we didn't get any objections or submissions, then you would delegate authority to progress. If there were, or they were unresolved, it would have to come back. On this one, we would be bringing that back to the council. There's still other work that needs to progress going forward prior to you getting to a point where you would contemplate that support of a planning proposal that came forward. The only other comment I would make very quickly, Mr. Mayor, is that the question in relation to the 100% cost recovery, we fully appreciate and understand, but just need to remind council that would be a matter for a submission to IPART and for them to make that determination. So that's part of that process that we go forward from here.
Can I just clarify to make sure I've understood? So residents would put in a submission, it would count to go to it. It won't change the documentation. It would then come to council for the councillors to change it. Is that right?
You couldn't say what, it would depend on the veracity of the submissions and the information that was provided, whether or not council officers recommended amendments to the proposal or otherwise, and then that, however that might present in a report, would be a matter for the council to decide upon. Yeah.
So it seems quite hard.
I appreciate your concerns there.
Thank you.
Councillor King.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have a question through you, if I could, maybe to the CFO, just around the 100% apportionment cost. I've been getting a lot of frustration off residents or ratepayers going, well, where does council's money go? And I think this is a really good example of where it goes. If I could just ask him to maybe just speak a little bit to if we don't get the 100% applied, what the cost to council would be.
CFO.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Without being fully across this paper in particular, the costs that council have to bear for this UIA are not covered in our long-term financial plan. So it needs to come from other sources of income to fund any infrastructure that we have to build. And in that sense, it's a combination of developer contributions if they're available, grants if they're available, but alternatively it falls down to general income, which is rates. And if that is not sufficient, then also do we borrow to do it to meet the requirements of what we have. But I would also note that, as noted in the report, none of those costs, including the holder costs of the new infrastructure, are included in our long-term financial plan as yet.
Thank you. And I'll just use my turn to speak, because in the paper, I think it says if this does not happen, so if we don't get the 100% apportionment cost to the developer, that would then mean council could likely pay up to $36 million in contribution fees to the infrastructure surrounding this development. So I just wanted to bring that to the attention of people that may be watching. A lot of these developments in our area is capped at $20,000 per lot. So legally, by state legislation, council can't ask them for more money other than going this pathway that is suggested in that dot point by going to IPART and actually ask them for exemption. But it's still not 100%. I think that would take them to up to $30,000. So the infrastructure related per lot, so it costs you $50,000 per lot. And that means council has to pay for the outstanding amount that doesn't cover the cap. So if the developer pays 30,000, council has to pay 20,000. And you times that by 700 lots and it adds up to millions of dollars that council has to pay out of pocket if they don't get grants or other source of funding. So I just wanted to make that point. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor King. Just to follow that line of thought before I throw to Councillor Harrington and other councillors for further questions. In the report, it does mention applying to IPART for the additional 10,000 to bring it up to, 30 on top of the 20 base cap that we've got. Can you just speak into a little bit more detail of probabilities concerning that? Like a better term?
Mr. Mayor, we might get to, I think 79 was the upward cost, 20 is the cap, and in an urban zone, 20 is the cap. You can apply for areas outside the urban zone to the minister for up to 30,000. We've had those discussions with the Department of Planning, who've identified within their regional plans an urban zone, so 20,000 is the cap. The other option, and I'm not advocating, is that you can then talk to the developer potentially around a planning agreement, voluntary planning agreement to cover additional costs rather than. I think the only other point I would make at this point is that what the structure plan and contributions plan are seeking to do is to establish a framework at the higher level around if this land was to be developed, these are the lots and the yields we anticipate, and this would be the infrastructure that having consulted with the community is expected to be provided. At that point, you still haven't made any changes to your planning instrument, to your local environment plan or to your DCPs or any of the other documents. That is subject to then proposals coming in from a developer, be a scoping proposal, the starting point, or a planning proposal, or rezoning. At that point, they would need to be demonstrating both compliance with the minimum lot size and the arrangement, together with their capacity to deliver on all the other elements that I see Councillor Jurd's talked to in relation to traffic, transport, servicing, infrastructure and the like. That then is a matter for council to make those decisions. So at this point, you're not committing to that cost. It's a risk that you're identifying. If you then progress with planning proposals and were to support them, we're not suggesting that at this point, that's when those costs start to be realised. So this is that precursor, but you've still got other opportunities as a council to contemplate whether or not that's the appropriate economic and orderly development of the area for the local community.
Councillor Harrington.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I initially, when attending the briefings on this matter over the last 12 months, was quite, while the obvious financial implications, it's a big financial risk if IPART doesn't come to the party. Looking at the scenarios, I did support the 750 square metre, 2,000 square metre and 4,000 square metre lots, because that was the character of the village of Nulkaba. But then reading the report over the last week, and I got to the figure 26, and it was a little map of the proposed zoning changes to that area. I guess I was concerned because my initial picture of what this development would look like would be to keep that rural character of Nulkaba, would be to have a small portion of 750 square metre blocks and more of the 2,000, 4,000 square metre blocks. But looking at the structural plan, the majority are 750 square metre blocks in that area. And that just concerns me about keeping the real aspect of Nulkaba. And in addition, the cost of that scenario to council if the IPART application for 100% apportionment fails. So I just think that the people who chose to live in Nulkaba, they did so because of the rural village feel, and for the larger lots, the open space and the quieter lifestyles and the character of that area. But once that character is lost, we don't get it back. And I don't think the community wants to wake up to one day find Nulkaba turned into another standard suburban estate with blocks getting smaller and smaller. So, yeah, I cannot support in its current form the structural plan that we are voting to go out on exhibition. and I would like to look at alternative plans which will, I guess, meet the needs of the community as well as legislation and infrastructure servicing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harrington. Councillor Palmolsky.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I am, reading this document, on the fence, but I do support the original motion. I think listening to everybody, I think it's important to acknowledge it is going on exhibition, and I think it's important that we get a good idea of what the residents want with their feedback of it going on exhibition. I am supportive of the smaller lot sizes as well as the larger ones. I think you can have that rural feel or that semi-rural feel with those smaller lots in Nulkaba. And I think there's lots of opportunity for also those luxury lifestyles in the vineyards as well. I think having a good balance between the two, allows flexibility of different lifestyles to live and have the opportunity to live that semi-rural lifestyle. You've got more opportunity, as it was mentioned before, but by affordable housing also, which we know that we're in need of. To point out the obvious, we do, need to look at our housing as well. So I think I'm supportive of putting that original one out and just really listening to what the submissions and what the residents want with what we provide them before we make a decision.
Thank you, Councillor Palmolsky. Councillor Bangura.
I've got a question. How did we come up with the 750 square meter? Is that taking into account the fact that Nulkaba is not far from the CBD? I'm in support of the original motion.
Just looking at a point of clarity, I'll put you over to the Manager of Strategic Planning to just field that question.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor, the existing lot sizes have been in place for 10 to 20 years, and they are the combination of 750 up to 4,000 square metres. Now, the existing village around the school is 750, Valley View Place is 750. There's more recently zoned land which are larger lots, but over years, going back to about 2010 is when the original 750 zone lot size was introduced, or before that time.
Thank you.
Okay, no further questions. So just to confirm, Councillor Jode for right of reply. Councillor Jode.
Almost forgot. Thank you, Mayor. My goal with my motion is to represent my Nulkaba residents. I'm not against development. I'm for making sure residents that brought in Nulkaba are able to keep their lifestyles. State government has put these housing targets on us, but I'm not seeing the benefit of the developments. Because, we can all see that we're not getting enough funding. I don't want this to be another change to Nulkaba, which I see it, and I know many residents see it as unfair. This is a compromise development without losing the village feel. I know the original motion is only putting it out on exposition, but after my questions, it will be hard for residents to be able to stop it. I've seen this many times with things going out on Expo, coming back, and they're saying that they've addressed the residents' concerns and it's been put through. But I want to finish on this. Dot point 5 of my motion still puts it out on expedition. All it's doing is making sure that 750 metre square blocks are not in it, so that it's already taken away so the residents don't have to fight to keep the village lifestyle. But residents can still put their submissions in to say that they want 750 square metres. And then it can come back to council, we can debate it and convince 7 of us to put 750 square metres in there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jode. So just confirm that we we are debating, or we have debated, and now we're putting up to vote the amended motion there, or the alternate, just to make that clear. There's only one there. We haven't moved the original one, so that's what we're going to vote on now. So by a show of hands, put it forward for a vote. Councillor Jerd's amendment. So all in favour? Councillor Dixon, Harrington, Jerd, King, Franklin and Watton. Those against? Councillor Dunn, Hill, Lee, Bangura, Palmowski, Pascoe and Hawkins. Amendments lost. So because of that, we didn't have anything tabled or foreshadowed. We'll put that, would someone like to move the original recommendation? Councillor Palmowski, seconded Councillor Pascoe. Is there any discussion? Councillor Hill.
Thank you, Mayor Watton. Just in reference again to a point I raised before, that I believe that the original motion is printed in the agenda, I think I found more suitable. However, I still do hold some concern about the 750 square metre lot size. I guess an additional question I have, and some staff maybe touched on the point in some of the previous answer. If the 750 square metre lot size were to be removed or to be amended to say 1500 square metres, or if the sizes were changed, do we expect that there needs to be any deal of additional work done internally by staff prior to this being able to be put out to exhibition, or is it suitable to be put out as it stands, and that additional work would be done concurrently in the background?
Let's put that through to the Manager of Strategic Planning.
To you, Mr. Mayor, any changes in lot yield and lot sizes will generate the need to update studies that have already been done and recalculation of potential contribution costs.
Okay, excellent. Even with that standing, I think I still would prefer to see the additional plan put out with the 750 square metres as written in the current motion, amended to 1500 square metres. So the first dot point would read that Council endorses the lot sizes of 1,500 square metres, 2,000 square metres to 4,000 square metres. That would be an amendment I put forward.
So you're looking to make that amendment?
Yes, please.
Okay. Yeah, so just to confirm, the mover and seconder, are you happy to adopt that? No? No. You want a second? No, well... Okay, so if you're proposing that amendment, that it can be seconded? Yep. Okay, well, are we all clear on what we're voting on though? Councillor Bangura?
Would the 1,500 be the minimum?
Okay, so just confirm, I think, we can enter, we're in discussion now concerning the amendment. So Councillor King?
Just another question. I'm not sure if anyone would actually be able to answer this at the moment. I was just curious, by changing the lot sizes from the 750 to 1,500, would we know what that means for the yield, the number of properties?
General Manager.
We'd need, I mean, we on the basis of the work that's being done, we could hazard a pretty reasonable guess, but no, we'd need to do more detailed work on that, together with then identifying what that proportion application would be for the existing population and the new population, because that will change, and we'd need to update the various studies in relation to the change in the yield, so traffic, transport, the biodiversity need, not a major change, but we'd need to revisit that together with the social impact. So it would be, I mean, on estimates, we did do a look at this. That kind of update works probably in the order of about $100,000 based on our previous costs for doing that work, with some escalation. So it would be money that's not yet available in the budget and additional timeframes, but it will reduce yield, but I couldn't tell you specific numbers.
Yeah, because I was just trying to get an idea of what the developer's idea was there around, say they do the 750 lots, is that going to be 30% of it or 40% of it? By changing this, how much does that impact their plans is what I'm trying to get at.
We've done some market testing broadly with the UDIA on the various ranges because of the difficulties we've had, and their position was that this was kind of you're borderline marginal for them to be in a position to start to progress. We don't know how the developer would lay out their yields with either 750 or 1500 until they make that application.
No worries. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Councillor Harrington? You put it? No? Okay. That's okay. Is there any further discussion before we put this forward? Okay. Councillor Harrington?
I will speak, thank you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, look, as I said, in principle, am in favour of some of the blocks being 750 square metres because the whole Nulkaba village is a variety of those. They're the existing lot sizes. I don't have an issue with that. What I have an issue with is the number of blocks on that diagram, the number of areas that are now solely 750 square metres. There's a very small proportion that are 200 square metres or 400 square metres. I assume I'm reading that correctly because I found it, actually I don't know if anyone else, I found it really hard to read that with the coding that was on there. It was very hard. The colours were very similar and I had to go from screen to screen to say, okay, that area there is, oh, okay, that's going to be RU5, and I had to go back. So as I said, I think we have to be mindful that there should be fairness involved for both sides, for the residents and for the growth of our area and that need for housing. I just, regardless of what goes through tonight, I would really like to see in that public exhibition that it's made very, very clear to our community what proportion is planned to be 750 square metres. Because my looking at it, and I'm not a mathematician, but I'm looking at it was probably 70% of that. Well, I'm sorry, there were some that were conservation areas, but of residential lots, it looked about 60 to 70% were 750 square metres. Now, we're talking about Nulkaba that has a population of about 700 people, and we're going to triple that with this development if it goes ahead as per the structural plan. So I do have major concerns about that. So yeah, I'm in a difficult spot here with this one tonight. Oh, sorry, and I just also want to add, what also adds to my concern is listening to the speaker before, at the start of the council meeting, wanting to squeeze that size down smaller. So yeah, I have major reservations about this moving forward as is.
Thank you, Councillor Harrington. Councillor Pascoe?
Thank you, Mayor Wotton. Just a quick question to, I guess, follow up what Councillor Harrington just mentioned. On the structural plan diagraphs, there are, estimated lot sizes. That's not set in stone though, is it? We don't actually have a DA or plan in place. So all of this is kind of an estimate, hypothetical. Is that correct?
It's a structured plan, going on exhibition.
But it's just going out on plan. We're not saying we're going to do 70% at 750 and we're going to have 25% of 2,000 squares and then 4,000.
Yeah, you're correct.
That's all still flexible, isn't it?
Yes.
It still will be dependent, sorry.
General Manager?
Chair and Councillor, it still will be dependent on what a developer can reasonably do, and then there's site conditions and the like that they'll do with their investigations where, whilst generally speaking, and biodiversity has impacted this greatly, but you used to, whatever area it was, you would generally say about 60% of that area was developable. So if you're talking about the 750, it's not 100% of that 750 that will be broken up into. It's a bit too simplistic, but we won't know that until an application is before us. So it's not unreasonable for people to presume that 100% of that area would be at that 750, and that's part of that I guess the balance at a structure plan, then coming to what a realistic outcome would be at a rezoning proposal. But
Yeah.
at the moment, it's just that area is entitled to be at that minimum lot size.
Yeah, okay, beautiful, thank you.
Just before I pass to Councillor Anderson, just for a question, question of my own. So, feedback from the community concerning this potential plan. There's obviously been some exhaustive work that's been done in getting some community feedback. I'm wondering if a staff member might be able to speak on what that community feedback was, what it was like initially. I've got someone, Manager of Strategic Planning. You're welcome to come use mine. It works, but I can't. Just for the sake of... It's just for the sake of people being online. So, again, you are welcome to use this microphone. No, none of them's working. Yeah, so if you are watching this, either live on Facebook, YouTube, or if you're watching the recording, we are having some technical difficulties. My microphone appears to be the only one working. I'm trying to put it through to the Manager of Strategic Planning for some commentary on feedback, so we'll see what we can do. Okay, someone want to move for a 5-minute adjournment? Councillor King, seconding Councillor Pascoe, all in favour? It's unanimous. All right, we'll have a 5-minute adjournment while we work out some technical difficulties. Thank you.
I can do you can do that in your life.
Okay, councillors, we've ironed out the technical difficulties. We are still live, streaming live. I just encourage everyone to return to their seats and we can continue debate. Okay, councillors, we will continue debate because we are running light on time with our code of meeting practice. So I did ask a question from the Manager of Strategic Planning just concerning feedback from the community. If you could speak a little bit further to that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, yes, the community was engaged through the social impact assessment and the report that was generated. Lot size wasn't a big issue at all in terms of that consultation and feedback. It related to the need to upgrade existing infrastructure, roads, pathways within the existing urban area and the impact of increased population on that.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Jerd?
Thank you, Mayor. I just got a quick question because we've been talking about lot sizes and developers and whatnot. Have we ever had a time where it's zoned for 2,000 square metres blocks, for example, and zoned for 750 square metres? Let's do it that way. That's the way I meant to do it. And they decide to do 2,000 square metres instead. Because in my opinion, if they can go as small as they can, developers would go as small as they could because they would make more money by selling more blocks.
Manager of Planning?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I can't give you an example of, say, a 2,000 square metre minimum lot size, but I can give you evidence based on our normal residential subdivision standard of 450, which is most of our residential area and growth areas where our minimum lot size is 450. The market has demonstrated over the last 10 years that the lot size is more like 650, and that's what's being produced in the market. Now, that has come down very marginally in recent times, but whilst our standard is 450, the market is demanding a higher lot yield, a higher lot size, and it's delivering a bigger lot size than what the minimum is.
So the next question I've got, a developer does make more money on more lots that they sell. Is that correct?
I'll put it through to the General Manager.
Again, that will depend on the availability of other supply in the area and the infrastructure costs that are either imposed or that they seek to provide themselves. It's not as straightforward. The more lots they get, the more that the market... It will depend very much on what the market is dictating. My understanding is a lot of the more, call them sophisticated developers, those that do these large-scale subdivisions a lot, tend to understand that the market dynamics much more, and lot size is more determined by market than them wanting to. But generally at this strategic planning stage, you do tend to look at the more simplistic, and I don't mean that disrespectfully, but no, at the moment we know with the Bellbird North that that's not where the market is. Our understanding at the 750 is we haven't done that kind of level of work, but it's no guarantee that the developer doesn't see that there might be more money in 1,000 square metre lots and or larger lifestyles if that's where they can go down to, but they're not obligated to be at 750.
Councillor Harrington.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I just have a question. So we are voting tonight to put this structural plan out on public exhibition, and it's been pointed out several times that this is not a development application. We're not approving anything. We are just putting it out for the public to give their views. But what view are we giving the developer by putting that out? Is it saying this is what we will agree to? This is the minimum we agree to? Because I think it's at the point of a structural plan, isn't it? It's to inform the community what we think standards we would go to, and to the developer. So I'm just worried that if we put this out on public exhibition, we're sending that mixed message.
So I'll put that through to the General Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Harrington, the structure plan sets out not just the minimum lot, but also the orderly development of, and there will be certain infrastructure that will lead that. So it does identify and indicate to developers of various parcels that if they choose to, if you like, go out of sequence, then they will be obligated to provide the lead infrastructure, which may not have been obligated on them if...
But we have no sequence in our structural plan.
We have no...
Sequence. I didn't think we had...
The layout so there'll be certain infrastructure, roads and connections and the like that will need to be provided in order to unlock lots. So if you're sitting at the periphery of that, then a lot of you would anticipate that what they would want to do is rely on other developers providing that upgrade and that infrastructure works, because otherwise they're then looking for a high return on their lots. So it is a matter of them playing that market and to see who first goes to the market with lots and yield. Obviously, if I'm the developer at the far corner and I have to build all of the road infrastructure and the road networks and the drainage and the footpaths in order to get people to me, I need to extract a higher premium price, or I'd be looking at different yield numbers. So they make all those decisions in the market. But no, we're not saying to them they must, but it's an identification for them as the development of structure plans over the course of the last 15 or so years have started to indicate to, again, the developers who do this more regularly, they understand where their costs will lie.
I just...
So, Councillor Harrington, we've hit 45 minutes plus the adjournment.
One. No.
We'll go, if you can do 10:15.
It's just related to our presentation tonight. No, I'll leave it. If I won't.
Point of order.
I won't break the rules. No,
yeah.
It's not fair. No.
Okay. Okay. So we actually have hit the time limit. So I'll read it out as the code specifies. So the Mayor or Chairperson will put the motion, irrespective to whether a councillor is speaking at the time, that we've actually hit that time. So as we are bound by that code, I need to do that. So now the motion will be put. So point 10 at 10.c of the Code of Conduct or Code of Meeting Practice, should I say, is the motion will be put by the Mayor. The time of debate has actually expired, and I'll now put the motion forward for vote. Oh, right reply, apologies. Yep, so Councillor Hill, you actually are allowed your right of reply, then we will have to put it to debate.
Well, I'm happy to just conclude my right of reply. I know Councillor Harrington has a question she'd like to raise. I'm happy to raise that during my commentary about whether or not the procedure allows for a procedural motion to defer to be entered even though we've reached the end of debate. Is there advice on that? Can a procedural motion to defer be put forward when the debate has already been concluded under that section of the code?
So you want to defer to allow a question, is that what you...
The question is, can a procedural motion to defer be put forward when the time has been lapsed for debate? Is that still possible to be done under the Code of Meeting Practice? Or does the motion have to be put and that's the end of the business and we move on?
Yep. Okay. Okay, that being said, we'll put it forward for a vote as it's read. So to clarify, we're voting on the amendment moved by Councillor Hill, seconded by Councillor Jerd. All in favour? Councillor Dixon, Dunn, Hill, Jerd, King, Franklin, Pascoe and Watton. Those against? Councillor Lee, Palmowski and Hawkins and Bangura. Now that's become the motion. Now we put the... You abstained? So that's against. Okay. So now put the motion forward. It's now become the motion. So all in favour? Yep. Yep. So sorry. Yeah, we'll put it forward for... Yeah. So they voted on the amendment. The amendment's been adopted now. Yep. So Councillor Dixon, Dunn, Hill, Jerd, King, Lee, Bangura, Franklin, Palmowski, Pascoe and Watton. Those against? Councillor Hawkins. And was there any other against or just more abstaining? I just need to clarify for the record. Abstained? Okay. The motion's carried. Yes, General Manager would like to make a point of clarity.
Just for councillors and those online, and if you do get asked questions, it will be some time before we put this on exhibition because there is considerable work that will need to be done to amend the documents and particularly the infrastructure and the planning that goes around that, maps and the like. I'd also just caution that there's additional funding that we'll now need to seek, which will have to come back to council through a quarterly review in order to update a lot of the studies to relate to a different yield outcome. So just as you get asked, this won't be on exhibition in the shorter term. That's all.
Okay, thank you, General Manager. Now moving on to report PE4/2026, the Cessnock Housing Themes Review. Speaking, Councillor Jerd.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to move an alternate motion that Council 1 receives and notes the Council Housing Theme Review Policy Paper and Submission Summary Report. 2 adopts the policy paper with the following amendments. A, villages RU5 zone. Council will not support any increase in housing density, multi-dwelling housing or reduction in minimum lot sizes within any RU5 village zone land. The rural village character and existing controls must be preserved. B, infill housing and density. Council will not support broad-scale infill development increasing densities or rezonings, including R2 to R3 changes or optimal density reviews in existing urban or village areas unless supported by specific infrastructure capacity audits and full community consultation. Prior must remain on greenfields area with confirmed servicing. C, infrastructure funding. Any future housing related planning proposals, LEPs or DCP amendments arising from this policy paper must include binding mechanisms for 100% cost recovery of all infrastructure, roads, intersection, water, sewerage, open space, community facilities and ongoing maintenance via Section 7.11, contribution plans or equivalent. No residential, oh God, I hate reading out loud. Residential costs are to be borne by existing ratepayers 3 requires that a further report be brought back to council detailing infrastructure capacity constraints in all villages and existing regional zones, and proposed wording for the above protections to be inserted into the LSPS, the UGBMB, and the future LEP and DCP amendments. 4 notes that any recommendations inconsistent with points 2A through to C above are not adopted at this time.
Someone to second that? Councillor Dixon, so seconding Councillor Dixon.
So tonight we're being asked to set the future direction for housing across our entire local government area. This is one of the most important strategic decisions we'll make this term, and we must get it right. Our community has been very clear that they want more housing choice, but not at the expense of our villages and existing neighbourhoods. They expect reasonable growth that does not leave existing ratepayers stuck with the bill. That is why I'm moving an amendment to the recommendation. This housing theme review contains some sensible ideas, but it has also opened the door to challenges that could fundamentally alter the character of our towns and villages. First, our villages, residents in our RU5 village zones deliberately choose a semi-rural lifestyle with larger blocks and a strong sense of community. They did not buy into future urban urban lifestyle. My amendment is crystal clear. Council will not support any increase in density, dual occupancy. Oh, I'm okay with dual occupancy actually. Multi-dwelling housing or reduction in minimum lot sizes in RU5 village zone. We must protect the very thing that makes Cessnock special. Second, infill housing and overpopulation. We're currently seeing pressure in our existing suburbs. Roads are congested, schools are full, and community facilities are stretched. Broad-scale infill and optimal density increases in established areas will only make this worse. My amendment directs that any density increases must be limited, evidence-based, and backed by proper infrastructure audits, not blanket policy changes that overpopulate our neighbourhoods. And third, who pays? Developers must pay the full cost of the housing they build. Existing ratepayers should not be left subsidising new roads, pipes, parks, and ongoing maintenance while developers make substantial profits. My amendment mandates 100% cost recovery on all future housing-related proposals with zero residential burden on our community. We have seen what happens when growth races ahead of infrastructure. We only need to look at the challenges still facing Bellbird North. We cannot repeat those mistakes across the rest of Cessnock. I believe my amendment strikes the right balance. It supports reasonable housing supply while protecting our community values most, our villages, our neighbourhood character and our rates. I therefore urge support the amendment I've moved. Let's make it clear, growth, yes, but only growth that respects our character, matches our infrastructure and is paid for by those who profit from it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jerd. Councillor Pascoe.
Thank you, Mayor Watton. I feel like I've got so many questions today. So just briefly moving through Councillor Jerd's amendment, I've just got some questions. For villages, reading through the report, to me, it says that the RU5 zoned areas vary significantly in character, infrastructure capacity and development patterns, and does not support a blanket increase in housing permissibility across the zone. So I guess I'm a bit confused because like the amendment says council will not support any increase in housing density, but does the policy already state that? Am I reading that right? Like the policy paper as it's written doesn't say that we're changing the density?
That's my understanding, correct, unless the manager of strategic planning might want to add some more concise detail. I'll put it through to you.
Through you, Mr Mayor, the policy paper doesn't recommend wholesale density changes in villages. It is suggesting that we look at villages to see if there's any precincts or opportunities to increase densities in certain locations. It's not a blanket increase in densities in villages.
Okay. And then the next point for B, about not supporting broad-scale infill development and zoning changes. And any rezoning changes have to come back through council, don't they? rezoning changes?
Yeah, it's an exhaustive process.
Yeah, so if we were to adopt the policy paper as written, there's no rezoning changes happening in that policy paper, and any rezoning would come back to council? Okay, cool. And then for C, with the 100% cost recovery of all infrastructure, completely agree with the no residual costs that have become a bit to be borne by existing ratepayers. We definitely don't want to be putting burdens on an already overburdened system, but doesn't that cost recovery have to go through IPART? That's what we were just talking about before?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, so there's still no guarantee that even though we say we want 100%, we're going to get it?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. Just a quick question too, based on the policy paper as written. A lot of it to me just seems like it's a review and further investigation. Am I right in thinking that? We're not rewriting the book, we're just further investigating these different themes? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pascoe. Is there any further discussion? Can I just ask a question about the feedback of the community in this particular paper? So there was 49, I don't have it in front of me right now, 49 submissions approximately. So there was homeowners, landowners, residents, then there was different groups. Could you just speak a little bit to, I guess, what residents or of our LGA, what their feedback was? Do you want to answer that?
Yeah. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll ask the senior planner to answer that question.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. As I try to highlight with the chart, across the 8 themes, we received varying degrees, various number of comments, and there were general sentiment from the community about some support for investigating opportunities for densities, but there are also similar general concerns across the residents showing concerns about growth. But we did consider all submissions coming through across 8 themes, and that has been included in the submissions review report. And the link between the submissions review report and the policy paper is clear that it discusses how those concerns have been addressed by the policy paper.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion on the alternate? We'll put it forward for a vote. Those in favour? Councillor? Yes, the amendment, yep. Councillor Dixon, Councillor Jerd, Councillor Franklin. Those against? Councillor Dunn, Harrington, Hill, King, Lee, Bangura, Palmowski, Pascoe, Hawkins and Watton. It's been lost. So now we need someone to actually move the original document, so recommendation, Councillor Pascoe, seconded Councillor Palmowski. Now, any discussion? No further discussion? All right, put it forward for a vote. All in favour? Councillor Dunn, Harrington, Hill, Lee, Bangura, Franklin, Palmowski, Pascoe, Hawkins and Watton. Those against? Councillors Dixon, Jerd and King. It's carried. So moving on to CC 25/2026. This is Controlled Document Review 2026, Rescission of Policies. Someone to move? Councillor Pascoe, seconded Councillor Lee. Any discussion? Councillor Jerd? Councillor Pascoe, as you're the mover, would you like to reply? Okay. Councillor Jerd?
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to double check. After reading the report, we are only rescinding 3 of those policies. Is that correct? Like the Legos and Crest policy, the copyright policy, and I'm not even going to attempt that middle one.
Legionella Management Plan.
Yeah, I'm getting too tongue-tied tonight. They're the only ones that we're rescinding?
That's my understanding as recommendation in the report, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
I just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Councillor King?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question regarding the copyright policy. Can I what happens to all council's copyrights, for example, the video feed if we rescind this policy? Can you just explain that bit for me, please?
So look to defer to the governance manager. Just confirm your question. What's the...
Just on the copyright policy. So if we rescind that policy, how does council still maintain their copyrights is what I'm trying to get at.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. The Copyright Act sets out the limitations and the protections for council, so that overrides what was in the policy. The rescission of the policy ensures that we continue to operate within the bounds of the legislation and doesn't cause any conflict with it or confusion.
Okay, so because the legislation overrides our policies anyway, there's no need to have this policy in place anymore, is that right?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's correct.
Thank you.
So somewhat just cleaning up a technicality or duplicate. Any further discussion? Okay, we'll put it forward for a vote. All in favour? It's unanimous. Moving on to CC26. This is the review of the complaints handling system. Someone to please move that. Councillor Lee, seconded Councillor Pascoe. Discussion? Just confirm we're up to CC26. Councillor Jerd.
Sorry, Mayor, I usually think that we go reasonably slow, but you were going a bit quick for me then. I do have a motion that I'd rather move, that council receives and notes the report and revised policies, that 2, adopts the revised complaints handling policy and the revised unreasonable conduct by customer policy with the following amendments. A, inserts a new clause requiring council to produce and publish an annual complaints report to council and the public. This report must include the number and categories of the complaints received, the number that resulted in unreasonable conduct, restrictions, a de-identified summary of outcomes and any trends or issues identified. The B, includes an explicit statement that the unreasonable conduct provisions must be applied reasonably and proportionately with proper regard to natural justice and procedural fairness, particularly for residents raising legitimate ongoing concerns about council services, planning decisions or infrastructure. And that 3, requests a further report to council in 12 months on the implementation and effectiveness of the revised policies, including resident feedback.
I'll need someone to second that amendment, or alternate, should I say? Okay, that's lapsed.
Yeah, go to the original one.
So we now need to, well, we did move and second the original motion, so we'll put that up for discussion. So, Councillor Harrington.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Watton. I was just wondering if the mover and seconder of the original motion would consider adding point 3 from Councillor Jerd's motion, because I would like to see feedback to councillors of the revised policy. Oh, sorry, it's reviews. Yeah, just a feedback to us. And I think do we already get that? Do we get a review every 12 months of the complaints log? I basically remember it goes to ARIC, does it? Okay.
Yeah, it comes through ARIC, which is then, did you want to speak to that? Yeah, Director of Corporate.
Thank you. Under the current arrangements, there used to be a report to council, but currently it is going through ARIC. But there would be nothing that would be against the addition of the dot point 3 that a report comes back. I would suggest that it finishes under the revised policies rather than the last little bit around including resident feedback, because any report would actually have feedback on any people that were captured under those changes. The changes are essentially, as those are put forward by the New South Wales Ombudsman, the best practice and a lot of the things that Councillor Jerd was seeking to have added specifically are essentially in the principles anyway. So more than happy for that dot point 3 to be added and get a report back to council in 12 months, as well as the regular reports through ARIC.
The mover and seconder be amenable to the request? Sure. Well, we'll adopt that into.
Yes.
Yes. Yep. 2 yeses. Okay. Any further discussion?
Just get the resident feedback.
Okay. Happy with that dot point 3, Councillor Harrington, mover and seconder. You're okay with that? Councillor Pascoe?
Thanks, Dan. There were a few nods, but we do get a report for customer complaints, don't we? I'm pretty sure we've seen that report before. Oh, sorry. We do usually get a report, don't we?
Kind of through ARIC now, but I don't think we've had one.
I feel like we've had a report come through before about complaints and things
Annual.
like that. Yeah, we do already get it. Thanks.
Yep. Yep, Director.
Unless the corporate governance manager is going to correct me, I believe that the old policy did have an annual report to council. The amended policy is not recommending that. It is through the ARIC process, but certainly the addition of that dot point 3 is we can bring that back to you in 12 months and let you have a bit of an understanding or a feel for where those unreasonable complaints restrictions may have been imposed. I will point out that they are very, very minimal in relation to all our interactions in council's operations, but certainly that oversight exists through the ARIC process.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, we'll put it forward for a vote. All in favour? It's unanimous. Moving on to report CC 27. This is the appointment of representatives to internal and external committees following the casual vacancy. Could I have someone to please move that? Councillor Pascoe, seconded Councillor Bangura. Yep. So what we'll need to do is now obviously allocate names for each committee. So do we have anyone? Let's just go through it point by point.
Can I just suggest that Sarah's the one that moved it, she's the one that needs to put the names in there.
Okay.
Unless she's going to ask for volunteers.
Well, as the mover, officially, you can just nominate if you'd like to. You can nominate whatever councillor you like, or we can put it through a discussion. There was a couple. There was a few people that put their hands up though. So there's a couple of councillors here that did express their interest.
Can I suggest they help themselves?
Yep. So for the sake of transparency, would you like to put up your hand as to who those councillors are? I believe it's Councillor Bangura, Pascoe and Harrington.
Is that for the strategic property?
Yes. Councillor Harrington. And Councillor Franklin's got interest?
Just a question, Mayor, to make the onerous task on Councillor Pascoe a little simpler. Would she be able to just read out each committee and those interested would raise their hand and then she could select from those? Or is she just expected to sit there and appoint people who may not be willing to be on that committee?
Captain's call. So yeah, you're happy to? Okay. Councillor Pascoe.
God. So, that council establishes the Strategic Property Committee and adopts the charter. So this is the new committee. The council appoints the mayor and show of hands.
So show of hands for who's interested.
How
So
many councillors do we have to do?
Sorry?
3?
3 and 1 alternate, so 4 total, with 1 as alternate member.
Okay, so Councillor Harrington?
You wanted to?
No.
I'm happy to be alternate because I said I would, if there was a vacancy, I would go onto that committee. But if you have,
Okay, so
I would be-
for the strategic property, we have Councillor Bongara, Councillor Franklin, Councillor Palmuski and Councillor Harrington as an alternate.
Okay.
That's fine.
So now we're going on to Eric.
That council appoints. Had anybody put their hands up for the ARIC committee? What happens if we don't have anyone that wants to be on it?
Yep, Director of Corporate. Haven't seen that happen before, but Director of Corporate.
There is no requirement for there to be a council on it. It is best practice to have one. So I would hope that one council would put their hand up.
Beautiful. So the council appoints Councillor Harrington to the Audit, Risk and Improvement Committee as a non-voting member for the current councillor term. That council appoints Councillor Bangara, for the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Committee as member for the current council term. The council appoints Councillor Hill? No?
The alternate member, and has attended as a member a number of times. So if there is an
So
interest
should
for
Councillor Lee
Councillor
become the
Bangura to
voting
be
member?
the new alternate, I think Councillor Lee would suit the current actual position.
Councillor Lee.
I did also express an interest via email to the Mayor on that basis as well.
If Councillor Lee is changed from the alternate to the Matter Committee, do we have to have an alternate as well?
It's good practice because we want to make sure we've got quorum. So if you not have an alternate,
Okay. Okay. So I think that was just that councillor appoints Councillor Lee to the Budeye Quarry Consultative Committee? No?
no, the Aboriginal, sorry. We're going Councillor
Why
Lee
did I move this?
and Bangura, alternate director.
Thank you. Councillor Bangura was nominated for the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Committee.
Yes.
You're now on the Budeye Committee.
Yes.
And I think the
That's
proposer
Councillor-
there was Councillor Lee.
So
who
Councillor
was an
Lee won't
alternate.
be the alternate though, he will be the actual
And-
member.
No?
Yeah, we'll still say.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well, I'm so pissed.
If I may provide some clarity, please. Councillor Hill has pointed out that Councillor Lee was the alternate member on the Aboriginal Committee, and as such, he should be appointed as the new member for that committee. And because Councillor Bangura has indicated her interest, to make her the new alternate for that committee. Thank you.
Oh, I thought we were talking about the Budeye, sorry.
You can move it however you want.
No, you just skipped one.
I'm so confused.
Now we're up to number 5, Budeye.
Oh, so Councillor Lee, yours wasn't the Budeye one. Oh God, I have no idea what this is happening. So is there someone prepared to be on the Budeye Quarry Consultative Committee? Do we have an alternate at the moment?
The alternate is the one that's vacant.
Right. Okay, so Councillor Jerd
Yep.
to the Budeye Quarry Consultative Committee as an alternate member.
Okay, so
So
now we need
who's
to,
currently the alternate for Black Hill?
at Black Hill,
Yeah. Is there currently an alternate for Black Hill? So Councillor Hill would then be the member for the current council term. Does that mean we need a alternate for that
it's
one as
always
well?
good to have an alternate, just in case Councillor Hill can't attend.
Do-
What's the frequency of the committee? Twice a year? Councillor
So
Dunn?
Councillor Dunn will be the alternate. And then number 7, that council appoints a councillor to the Hunter Central Coast Regional Planning Panel. Is this the one that had to have certain qualifications to be on that panel?
I believe Councillor King indicated interest, not in this one? No.
So does anyone have any interest in that?
It's not just a police check, it's
Okay, so Councillor Franklin is interested in that one?
yeah, large scale planning, so regional based planning, big decisions.
Over 20 million bucks.
Yep.
Go to regional.
Yep, so just an alternate.
Beautiful. And then the council appoints a councillor as a member of the Hunter Water and Community Advisory Group. How often does that one?
Infrequent. I've only stood in for one. Can speak to the actual frequency off the top of my head.
Okay, well, I can be part of that one. So the council appoints Councillor Pascoe as a member of the Hunter Community Advisory Group.
Okay.
Oh my God.
That was good. That was very seamless. So
It would have been easier if I could have.
late entries. All right, so are we all happy, councillors, with where things sit? Anyone want to move around to anything else? No? All right, let's put it forward for a vote. All in favour? It's unanimous. Okay. Moving on to CC 28/2026, the rate subsidy policy review. Someone to please move. Councillor Lee, seconded Councillor Hill. Any discussion? Councillor Dixon.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just want to say that I'll be voting against this tonight for the reason being that, as I've said many times before, we are asking our residents to pay a 40% rate rise. I really don't think we can afford to be giving subsidies to anybody else, even though they might be worthy. I think at this stage that needs to be cut. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dixon. Councillor Hill.
Thank you, Mayor Watton. Just a few points. I note that although the new policy has still been underway, that there's been some good work from our council staff to ensure that this process for the rate subsidy applications runs more smoothly. Councillors and perhaps the community would note that last month we voted on the adoption of rate subsidies for about 12 or so non-for-profit groups in the community that provide different social or other services to the LGA, and I think that there's been a marked improvement just in the smoothness of that each year to year. So I commend the staff on the work in the background to enact this, and I think that it's a good thing for us to continue providing this to groups that may well collapse without council support.
Thank you, Councillor Hill. Just to confirm, this is actually putting the policy on public exhibition for 28 days, and that we do understand that if there's no submissions, it will be adopted automatically, just so that's actually clear. So that being said, any further discussion, questions? Put it forward for a vote. All in favour? Councillor Dunn, Harrington, Hill, Jerd, Lee, Bangura, Franklin, Pomolsky, Pascoe, Hawkins and Watton. Those against? Councillor Dixon and King. That's carried. Now moving on to report CC 32. It's the authorisation to borrow. Speaking, Councillor Jerd.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to actually move an alternate motion that Council 1 receives and notes the report CC 32/2026, authorisation to borrow. 2, defers consideration and determination of the proposed $6.5 million borrowing until the new General Manager commences her role. And 3, request the new General Manager provide a report to Council that includes a full review of the 2 projects, Old Waste Facility Capping and Bridge Replacement Program, confirmation of the most appropriate funding sources, including any available grants or alternative financing options, a detailed long-term financial impact assessment, including total cost to ratepayers, principals plus interest, and impact on future rates, and her professional recommendation on the timing, structure, and quantum of any proposed borrowing. 4, notes that the deferral allows Council to benefit from the new General Manager's significant expertise and experience in financial management and major project funding before committing to additional debt.
All right, someone to second alternate motion. Councillor King. Speak further. Councillor Jerd.
I move to defer CC 32/2026 because we're asking to approve 6.5 million in new borrowing with a new general manager about to commence who brings substantial expertise in this area. To me, it's prudent and responsible to allow her to review these projects and provide a professional advice before we commit to this level of debt. This is not opposing the projects themselves, but ensuring we make the best possible decision with the best possible leadership in place. Who knows, she might be able to get us a better deal on the borrowing as well.
Thank you, Councillor Jerd. Councillor Hill.
Thank you, Mayor Watton. Just a couple of questions in relation to the two items indicated that this borrowing is intended to be used for. The capping and closure of the old waste cell at the facility. Is there any timeline that we are working towards to ensure we meet expectations put to us by the EPA in regards to the capping of that waste cell?
I'll put it through to Director of Works.
Through you, Mr Mayor. Councillor Hill, we have a current requirement to have the capping works completed by the end of 2026.
Excellent. And also in relation to the bridge replacement program, is the money being requested for borrowing in this instance in relation to bridge projects that have already begun works, and also is this funding going towards projects where we are co-funding the bridge alongside other grant funding, or is this funding for bridges that we're entirely funding ourselves?
Director of Works.
Through you, Mr Mayor. Councillor Hill, the loan funding or loan request is for Doyle Street Bridge, which is commenced construction already. That is fully funded by this request. The other two bridges is Bathurst Street and Ferguson Street, which have a co-funding arrangement through a grant.
So I guess additionally to that, if the funding that's being asked for in the borrowing of the 4.5 million for bridge replacements for the two bridges excluding Doyle Street, would there be an impact on our continued access to the co-funding for those bridges if this funding was not made available to put towards the complete project?
Director.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I'm happy to take the question. Councillor Hill, it is at risk.
Apologies that I haven't provided this for you before, and I appreciate if you need to take it on notice to get back to me, but are we aware of what the total current amount being co-funded for those other two bridges are that is not a cost to council but is being secured by grants or other means there?
Director.
Through you, Mr Mayor. Councillor Hill, I'll take that on notice if I can.
Thank you.
I know the amount, but not the exact amount, and I'd rather be accurate.
Thank you very much for that anyway.
Just wonder if it might be appropriate, I managed to, with the CFO, would have any further commentary on that? No? Okay. Councillor King.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I have a question for the CFO. Just this loan, is this part of our long-term financial plan? Because I vividly remember the professor on numerous occasions warning us against any more loans. Just how is that going to impact our special variation outcome in that sense?
CFO.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you, Councillor King. I can't remember the commentary that Professor Drew mentioned about loans, although I know just in a general realm he was anti-loans. In our long-term financial plan, we actually have a larger amount of borrowings than this. We're not proposing to do that at this time. For this year, while it's higher than the original one we proposed in the operational plan by about $1 million, the next year's loan is substantially much higher under both scenarios that we're proposing. But the indications are that we would not need loans anywhere near those quantums yet, as it really depends on the capping and closure that is undertaken on the waste facility, which is our proposal for borrowing really next year. So I anticipate a lower loan or hopefully no loans in the next financial year, but I can't guarantee that as yet.
Okay, thank you. I'd just like to ask Councillor Hill, if I may, Mayor Watton, we had a brief discussion there before about an idea of actually splitting this motion in two. Would you mind just pitching your idea to the council?
Councillor Hill?
Sorry, can you clarify what you mean? I'm not sure.
We had a brief discussion before this meeting about this, where you were sort of indicating an idea about splitting the motion and.
In regards to not the motion that's on the table, you mean the original motion in the printed documents? Yeah, it was probably prior to my questions that I've been asked here tonight. I wasn't aware of the background entirely of the money being borrowed for the bridges and how that would impact the projects on the card. So I don't believe that I'd be interested in continuing, what it was that I might have discussed previously. I think because of the situation that's been made clear to me by an answer to the question there, that the money being requested for loan is for both ongoing and co-funded projects. I think it would be very difficult for us to defer the borrowing there on that side for the impact it would have on one project that we've already begun getting underway with, and two other projects that we may look to be giving up money on that we've already received for those works. So I think that it was an idea I had prior to it getting questions answered, and not one I'm looking to pursue further.
Yeah, sorry to put you on the spot there, Councillor Hill. It's just because I'm kind of leaning towards deferring this for a month until we can get the general manager. Sorry? She starts the 29th of June, doesn't she? Yeah, well, I'd like to defer it until she starts so we can have her opinion on this, because this is going to have a significant impact on...
So that's basically what Councillor Jerd's motion is. She outlines until the new general manager commences her role.
Yeah, okay.
Which we're currently still debating.
Thank you.
Councillor Jerd, did you have a question? Because, okay, Councillor Jerd.
With Councillor...
So just 1 second. So if questions wouldn't close debate, it's just questions. Yeah, so just questions. Thank you.
Just because of some of the things that Councillor Hill asked the director, I just want to ask. So, did we start these projects already without the funding?
Director.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Jerd, there was a tender report that was put up last year for Doyle Street, which was endorsed by Council to approve the funding for the bridge. And Bathurst Street and Ferguson Street at the moment are in a development / planning, and the funding's been allocated through the operational plan.
Okay. But yeah, Doyle...
Just before you move, I think the CFO wants to add a bit more context to answer that question. Yep. CFO?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The original $5.5 million that was outlined in the operational plan and adopted in June last year was primarily for these two programs, so the bridge replacement program and the capping of the waste facility. And the council has had numerous times to consider those, including, as the director said, when the tender for Doyle Street Bridge was raised, as well as when the tender for the capping for the general works by Darracon out at the waste facility was put in place.
Okay. With those grants, if this was put back, till the July meeting, what's the time frame we've got to give those grants back for those bridges?
Director.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Jerd, the ability for us to give those grants back are if we refuse to complete the project. So with respect to the capping project, we've got an obligation through the EPA to maintain our operating licence of the Waste Management Centre, and that is conditioned on capping the existing cell, so the new cell can be operational. With respect to the bridge, we've commenced substantive works with Doyle Street. If we were to, it's not grant funded, it is funded through this loan proposal. The other two bridges would be delayed as a result. If we handed the funding back, the risk is that we may not receive further funding for that, and they would have to be at some point in the future fully funded through an arrangement, either through general funds or through another loan arrangement.
Okay, so make sure I've understood that correctly. So when it comes to the capping at the waste facility, it has to be done by the end of 2026. So we're currently in May. So
Yes.
the time frame of that's not too worrisome, in my opinion. When it comes to Doyle Street, which is the bridge that's already started, this loan doesn't affect it. It's already funded. That's what you've
No, sorry,
said.
the loan is, this loan is dependent on Doyle Street being able to be completed. Doyle Street is, it doesn't have grant funding. Doyle Street is fully funded through this process. So Doyle Street's been endorsed through the operational plan, so the funding allocation towards that. The mechanism to fund it, we've exhausted our opportunities for grant funding, and we've requested to go for a loan in order for the bridge to be completed because of its condition.
So, but that means we've started the project without the money.
No, well, we've started the project with an endorsed budget, which was endorsed by council through the operational plan and also through the tender process.
Just for, I think the CFO wants to add some more clarity to this. Sorry, CFO?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to be clear, in the operational plan, the sources of funding are outlined, including the borrowing. So once the council approves the operational plan and those different sources of funding, that is the mechanism by which the Director of Works can then go and issue a tender. And if I could draw the councillor's attention to the fact that when the tender was raised, the Director of Works made commentary to a question that was asked on that night as to whether it was grant funding or how it was being funded, and he did mention that if we were unsuccessful in a grant, it would be in terms of a loan. And can I also just add, in terms of deferring any loan here, you're running a significant cash flow risk for council. And I would point you to the fact of the investment report that shows that internal restrictions and unrestricted cash are well below $6.5 million, and we have commitments that we have agreed to make. So to do this, you'll run substantial cash flow risk and legal risk in terms of contracted works that are currently underway. And it would be important for the council to realise that before they make their vote.
Okay, thank you. Can we change it then so that we're not borrowing the full 6.5 million, that we're only borrowing enough for Doyle Street, and then defer the rest of that money till the new GM comes?
That would be
And then that way we're
CFO?
not getting ourselves into legal.
Ultimately, it's a council decision for how much you approve to borrow. It is not able to be delegated to staff. So that is at the discretion of the council. But I would note that the contracts have been signed, the works are commenced, and to delay anything further without getting this loan to be drawn down ideally in the next month puts council at a potential cash flow risk where I would be close to breaching the Act in terms of having to use restricted funds for unrestricted purposes.
I believe the General Manager just has some clarity about the capping.
Not so much clarity, but just another point for councillors to contemplate in the context of the risk is that we've been directed by the EPA to do that work under the protection licence. If we were to fail to do that and fail to meet, as a corporation, willingly and knowingly, the fines start at 7 figures and potentially more. So that's a risk that we place ourselves under if we don't conclude that work as proposed and as agreed through the EPL.
Doesn't that work that doesn't need to be done till the end of 2026, though, for the capping?
It's underway.
What's that, sorry?
It's underway.
It's already underway?
Yep. It's funded through the operational plan, as the CFO referred to.
So this is like when that money got approved for their sight unseen, where $10,000 got approved for that before it come to a council meeting, essentially. I know it's not the same thing, but because it's been approved that way, now my hands are tied and I have to either vote for $6.5 million for things that have already started, or we're at breach. Is that correct? Oh, this is Joe.
Yes, General Manager, sure.
I can't recall I don't understand, the 10,000 element. The 5.5 was originally identified and earmarked in the operational plan, and again in the December resolution. We are obligated to come to council at the point we wish to draw down on that loan or to seek and get approval for that loan, and that's what we're doing. The funding had been provided and the funding sources had been approved previously by council.
Okay, I just saw that you had your mic on. No, okay, thank you. Councillor Harrington.
Look, I just want to, I guess, help clarify the situation, because I remember this very, very clearly, because I learned quite a valuable lesson that we as a council, I remember the Doyle Street Bridge. Well, I know from my perspective, I accepted the tender for that bridge, I guess with the belief that we would be successful in our grant application, and we weren't. And so that's hence why we've accepted the grant. The work has begun. We accepted the tender. So the work has begun, and now we've got to pay for it. And you know, I think it's a hard situation for council, because you are asked to, you know, you can't rely on grant funding, but you know, you're told that this bridge is going to be, you know, not operational. It's on its last legs. We're going to have to close down, which would have been impacted quite a lot of people in that North Cessnock area and those businesses around it. So I do remember it, and I, you know, ideally I would love to be able to defer this so that our new general manager could be involved in that. But I guess we have to look at the risks of cash flow, and it's sort of, you know, a little concerning to hear the CFO talk about breaching the code, because nowhere in the report on this were risk implications if we don't approve the approval to borrow this loan. It just says here, we'll be exposed to overdraft and cash flow risks associated with funding of the works identified within the loan program. Nowhere there does it say that we would in risk of breaching the code. So I'm a little bit concerned to find that out here tonight. But yeah, I just wanted to let you know what I remember from that event and learned.
Thank you, Councillor Harrington. Councillor Pascoe.
Sorry, I hit the button. Thank you, Mayor Watton. I kind of echo what Councillor Harrington was saying. It's one of those things that coming into the meeting, I was thinking, yes, great, we'll defer it. However, when you do go back through the delivery program, I think it's something that I was definitely guilty of, that going through that play-by-play of the capital projects, it does say clearly that we have various citywide bridges, the year of implementation between 25-29, and the source of fund is loans. And looking at the new delivery program or the amended delivery program and the one that's already been adopted, I think it was June last year, we were forewarned that we needed the loans to fulfill these things. I think it's just one of those things that when we're told so much information, it's very hard to keep track of the time frame of everything that needs to be done. And I'm just cautious that if we do delay it, things like the funding won't come through in time for us to complete a cap, because I think from the director's commentary, it's going to take months to put the waste cell cap on. Is that correct? And we only have until the end of the 2026. So even if we do have the loan approval go through tonight, could we get some commentary around how long the approval process takes for that loan?
I think the CFO might be best placed to answer that.
Sorry, just to clarify for the loan.
Yeah, so if we were to apply for the loan this evening versus in 2 months' time, what time frame would we have for approval?
So we already have a quote and acceptance from the CBA to draw down the loan in early June, if you approve, from memory, and that's what the interest rate's set on. To defer and change the values, the process is probably would take another 1, 2, 3. We first got quotes in April, to put it out in that perspective. So I'd have to go get new interest rate quotes, bring it back to council for confirmation, and then draw down the loan. I am, obviously, as I've stated, concerned. While I can't guarantee that we would breach the Act, I am concerned that we are sailing close to it, and that is why we have determined to draw down a loan at this time.
So I think general consensus is obviously we're concerned because Doyle Street has commenced. So we're obviously concerned that that's not going to be finished in time and that the waste cell isn't going to be completed in time. With the other two bridges, is there any start dates in place for those, or are they, like, would the money from this loan then just sit in reserve for those two?
Director.
Through you, Mr Mayor. Councillor Pascoe, the other bridges are the bridges that are partly funded, both federally. And I might premise that by saying that as a result of our unsuccessful campaign for Doyle Street, we were fortunate with the other two bridges. So we've offset the costs of those two bridges with the ability to have those co-funded by the federal government. With respect to commencement, they're in next year's operational plan. At the moment, they're being undertaken for, they're progressing with design and approvals.
And then they would go out to tender as well?
They will go out to tender and they'll come up to council for approval.
Yeah, but then essentially, once that tender process is done, we have the funding there if this loan was to go through.
Sorry, would you mind repeating?
So if this loan was to go through, the funding that we needed to co-contribute to the other two bridges would be sitting in the reserves.
The funding will be associated with the budget allocated for the operational plan. Yeah. I might defer to the CFO to clarify that.
CFO.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillor Pascoe, you're correct. The undrawn loan funds sit as an internal restriction to be used for that particular purpose.
Sorry, CFO, can you just repeat? I think some councillors couldn't hear quite clearly.
Sure, sorry about that. The undrawn loan funds, whether for this or for the capping and closure, as it happens over the next few months, it sits as an internal restriction and remains there until it's actually used for the purpose that council has approved it for. Similar with Doyle Street. So when it's drawn down, it comes out bit by bit through the internal restrictions. So whether it's 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, anything like that.
Thank you. Councillor Angura.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just wanted to double check. So did council went ahead and approve this project hoping that we were going to get grant funding for it?
Well, yeah, that was the first point of call.
Okay, my second question is that, was there a plan B to it in case we don't get the grant funding?
Yeah, effectively that is we're in plan B.
Oh, okay. So we will approve project without hoping to get money to support it?
Yeah, so yeah, my understanding, I will defer to Director of Works, but having discussions concerning how bad the bridge was, it was emergency. So I recollect very well that meeting. Unfortunately, the funding didn't come through, but I will put it through to Director of Works to elaborate a bit more.
Sorry, just asking because I wasn't here when that was done. So I just want to have a little bit of background on that.
Sure.
Yeah,
Through you, Mr Mayor. Councillor Bangura. Just some clarification. Doyle Street Bridge, the condition of Doyle Street Bridge had been assessed back in 2023, 2024. It was at risk of having to close the bridge. There was a load restriction put on the bridge as a result. So it was our priority number one bridge to upgrade. We've got a list of 5 that this is number 1. The intent was to progress with the development and with the ability to leverage funds, that is grant funding. We're unsuccessful with grant funding for that, but we emphasise the The option we have is to fund the bridge by other means or close the road.
Councillor Harrington, just be mindful you to speak forward to some questions.
Just questions, thank you, Mayor. So can I ask what is the condition of those two other bridges that work hasn't begun on, Ferguson Street and Bathurst Street Bridge? You said that we knew Doyle Street was critical. What is the condition of those two?
There's been a condition, a level 3 condition assessment done on those two bridges as well. As far as the condition, I think Bathurst Street has a load restriction on it currently, and it is the next step for it is to close the road. Ferguson Street, the time frame, unfortunately, I'm unsure as to where it would need to be closed. I don't believe it has a weight restriction on it at this point, but the next inspection that's due for it may initiate a load restriction.
Okay, thank you. And so how much of that $6.5 million is covering the cost to repair those two bridges?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there isn't an allocation of funding. There isn't funding that is allocated through this for maintenance of those bridges. It's being undertaken through our general fund maintenance bucket at this point in time.
So could I ask the CFO, or yourself, what was the budgeted cost for those two bridges?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, could I take that on notice, please, Councillor Harrington, and I'll get back to you with the exact costs.
Thank you. And may I ask also if someone knows how much funding we've received towards the work to be done on those bridges?
I don't know if that goes to Director of Works or CFO. I'm not sure.
Through you, Mr. Mayor.
Sorry, Bathurst is... That's what they gave us, 750,000.
I'll defer. I'll either defer to Councillor Lee, or
knows his area well, Councillor
I'll take
Lee.
that on notice and provide you with the details of the funding, the grant funding that was allocated for that.
Yeah, I'm just interested to know, yeah, because I've read and heard that other councils are giving not applying for grants that aren't 100% funded, and I'm just wondering what percentage of funding, why are we borrowing all of this money just for a small token from grants, and we're covering a lot when it's not an urgent situation? That was just why I was after those figures.
The CFO might have some additions.
Yes, without knowing the exact number, but the co-contribution is 50%. So
50%.
it's 50% funded by grants.
Thank you.
Any more questions, Councillor Harrington?
No,
No.
I'm sorry.
Councillor Joe, just be mindful that you have this be closing debate. That's got questions.
Questions again before. So the waste capping, so isn't waste supposed to be fully funded by our waste charges on our rates and fees at the gate? And should that not have been budgeted for so we didn't have to get a loan to do the capping?
Put that through to CFO.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Broadly, you're correct, Councillor Jerd. However, to raise the funds we would have to put the domestic waste charge and other fees probably up to an exorbitant level and then raise them and then lower them later where we didn't have to meet that capital cost. So the best outcome is for council, in this instance, would be to raise a loan, use the income from those fees to then pay for that loan over time so that people do not cop a disproportionate increase in fees just to pay for a project that ultimately will last over 20 years.
Oh, I wasn't meaning put it up for now. I was more meaning shouldn't it have been budgeted for, knowing that that would have to be eventually done. Like, shouldn't our fees and charges cover these sorts of things? If we know that we've got to do capping and they're supposed to be done with the EPA, that was more what I was getting at. But what is our current debt service ratio currently, and what would it be after if this was accepted?
Just let me refer to the report. We don't actually use the debt service current ratio. We use a repayment one that is the OLG's one, so we are forecasting that for a benchmark of 2 times, that we will be at 24.4 times, so quite over by a bit. If we move into next year's budget period, depending on which outcome of the SV happens or the rate peg, it'll be between 11.46 and 16.95.
Can I ask while I still got you, was it this term of council or last term of council, I can't remember, where we were told we couldn't get any more loans due to, I can't remember the words, but we were told we weren't able to apply for any more loans?
You're talking about T Corp not being eligible for T Corp?
No,
Based on debt service?
I remember that we were told something along those lines of that we had too many loans and we couldn't get any more.
I've got the CFO and the Director of Corporate. We'll go CFO.
Certainly T Corp are not prepared to lend us any money at the moment. We're outside their risk parameters because of they would like us to have more revenue. The other funders that we sought quotes for was for Big Four banks. 3 of those banks were happy to provide us with a quote and acceptance of a loan of this amount.
Okay. Is there a possibility that we could transfer funds from other bridges that haven't started to pay for Doyle Street? Why we just still defer the 6.5?
I'm happy to go back to what I said earlier, that poses a cash flow risk. Most of the projects are already underway and committed. There's not a lot of excess capacity within the capital works program from a general fund sense that would meet the same quantum to pay for Doyle Street.
Okay. Okay. Well, I just want to close with this then. If no one else.
No, just be mindful. Councillor Dixon does have
All right.
a question, Councillor, or debate.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just a quick question. With the other bridges only being partly funded, where's the rest of money going to come from to pay for them? Are we going to have to ask for another loan?
Director, CFO.
It comes from this loan. You'll see it's an internal restriction. We won't come back to council to ask for more money in that sense. Noting that, of course, there's always a cost escalation issue if things are delayed.
Okay, thank you.
If there's any further questions, Councillor Judd, you're right to close debate.
I've got one more question before I close. If we borrowed the money from internally for now, so that Doyle Street gets paid, the other bridges are done, the capping started, could we not come back with the new general manager and apply for this money and put it back into those funds that we would take it out of for now? So we would only be at a risk of, being short on cash for maybe 2 months.
CFO.
Sorry, just to clarify, you mentioned borrowing internally. Is that correct?
Yeah, so if we could take the money internally and continue these projects, and then we could apply for a loan down the track to replace that money.
I would point council to a most recent resolution for the Warrnambool Road upgrade project. We've pretty much committed to borrow internally to complete that project. That has left us with no capacity to do anything further. So, in theory, yes, but those funds are already committed and assigned to a project that is likely to finish in the next 12 to 18 months. It, again, would be, in my opinion, an unacceptable cash flow risk.
So
Director just had an extra point to that question before you follow that line.
Yeah, thank you. Just to back up what the CFO has said, when you talk about borrowing internally, you're talking about internal restrictions and unrestricted cash. Our April investment report, which is also in this paper tonight, the agenda, has that figure listed as $1.2 million. So you're about $5 million shy. All the other cash and the like we are sitting on are all external restrictions. They are not funds that we can use to fund internal operations without approval of the minister. So they're not things that we can internally borrow. So the free cash that council, as the elected council and the operation have, currently internal restrictions and unrestricted cash at the end of April was approximately $1.2 million. So you're short by about $5 million.
Okay, I understand what you're saying there. What I'm trying to ask is, you know, with Wallenby Road, for example, we use contributions from other areas to start it, to then going to replace those contributions once we got them. I was thinking we would have a section for bridges that we could borrow the money out of, pay for it, and then once we got the loan, we could put it back into that bridges fund.
I just don't think we've got the unrestricted funds available whatsoever.
So we don't have like little sections for roads, bridges, you know, those little fun things. It's contributions or unrestricted funds, basically.
At this stage of things, unless what's outside what's being committed, but Director of Works.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Just to clarify, with no disrespect to the CFO and the explanation around the arrangements with cash flow, there's a high risk that our internal works teams don't have work, because we would have to then use that funding that we have currently for projects to be delivered this year or carried over into next year. That would be basically put on hold, and the money would then have to go towards the projects such as Dole Street and all the capping, and our internal teams do not have work to continue through with.
Okay, well, alrighty. This has put us in a really, really bad position. I mean, we've gone out to the public asking for an SB. We're now going, we've committed to these projects that need doing, and we don't have the money, and we're going to get an extra loan, and we've already got places that won't touch us for a loan. And now my hands are tied, and I really don't appreciate what position I've been put in. And I'm pretty sure most of us that are sitting around this table would feel the exact same way, that we're getting forced to have to approve a loan because the works have already started. And this is why I ask a lot of questions, and I get crucified for asking a lot of questions, because this is how we end up in these big, horrible positions. So I'm not happy. I'm just going to say that. I'm really not happy.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Jerd. So we'll now need to put this forward for debate, given the fact that we've heard quite a fair bit of detail and update and debate on this matter. So we'll put it forward now. So all in favour? Yeah, sorry. So what we just debated, the alternates, this is Councillor Jerd's alternate. So all in favour? Councillor Dixon, Councillor Jerd? Yes. Councillor Franklin? Those against? Councillor Dunn, Harrington, Hill, King, Lee, Mangura, Palmowski, Pascoe, Hawkins and Watton. That's lost, that alternate. Now I need someone to move the original recommendation as written in the report, please. Someone move. Councillor Hawkins, seconded. Councillor Pascoe. Any discussion? Had a fair bit of discussion on the last one. I think we got everything that we need to discuss out. So we'll put it forward for a vote. All in favour? Councillor Dunn, Harrington, Hill, King, Lee, Bangura, Palmowski, Pascoe, Hawkins and Watton. Those against? Councillor Dixon, Councillor Jerd and Councillor Franklin. Thank you, councillors. And I think just to echo the sentiment of everyone, this is a matter of the bridge failing or not failing at this point. So we would need to make sure that it stays open regardless, as hard as that call is. Now moving on to the next report, CC33, the social media report. Someone to please move that. Councillor Lee, seconded Councillor Hill. Any discussion? Councillor Jerd?
Sorry, I would like to actually move an alternate motion that Council .1 receives and notes the report. 2, does not adopt the revised social media policy and guidelines in their current form. And 3, requests a substantial revised policy that removes the prohibition on political debate, protects the implied constitutional freedom of political communication, ensures moderation in viewpoint neutral and includes transparent appeal rights and respects both residents and council's right to free expression under the Local Government Act 1993.
Someone to second that alternate? Councillor Dixon, seconded? Okay, Councillor Jerd?
Okay. I strongly oppose the adoption of the revised social media policy and guidelines in their current form. While I accept council needs reasonable rules to manage abuse and spam on its platform, this policy goes far beyond that. It represents a serious attack on freedom of speech and democratic accountability. Let me be clear, this policy must be rejected. First, it directly threatens the implied freedom of political communication protected by the Australian Constitution. High Court decisions stating with Lang versus Australian Broadcasting Corporation and confirmed in later cases made it clear that laws and policies which burden political communication must be reasonable and protainable. Banning political debate on council's own social media platforms and giving broad powers to remove content and ban users is neither responsible nor...
Councillor Jerd, sorry, just need to get some technical clarity on something, just a matter's been flagged. Sorry.
It stopped. It did stop. It did stop. Yeah. No. Now I don't know where I'm up to.
Okay, so what we have here is potential. It is a direct negative.
I wanted to move no one moved the first motion.
No, we did. Yes.
Did you?
Yep.
Oh, okay. Direct negative. All right, we'll do it as a foreshadow motion then, if that's what it has to be. If it's a
Okay. Yep.
direct negative, because that's the only way I can do it then, isn't it?
Yep. So now we're back to the original motion, so which was moved and seconded. So Councillor Lee and Councillor Hill. So we'll now be discussing that. So a discussion. Councillor King.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I've got a question regarding the need for this policy, right? Because in the paper, it references a number of state government acts as the basis of this policy. But I've just heard the governance officer there before explain to me something as important as the copyright policy is not necessary because state government legislation supersedes that. So my question is, if there is already legislation binding us as councillors especially, and a code of conduct policies that we have to abide by, what is the need for this policy?
Well, I believe it brings our policy up to date with what the requirements are from OLG, but I definitely want to give corporate governance manager the opportunity to answer that in further detail.
Thank you. The difference with the Copyright Act is that specific legislation that is encompassing. There's no one piece of legislation that sets out rules around social media. And I think what's set out in here is a number of regimes that are brought together. And based on that, the OLG has issued a model policy in which this policy is based on to be able to address the number of issues in different pieces of legislation.
Yeah, okay. And just a last question. So regards to, for example, the Defamation Act, right? This new policy will pretty much dictate that councillors have to change the name of their social media profile to identify yourself as a councillor, and have a clause linked to engagement policy and a number of other things in there. Does that then protect the councillor under the proviso of council against defamation? Because right now I'm personally liable for defamation on my page because it's my personal page. But if I then follow council's policy, for example, fully comply to council's policy and the same thing happens, does that defamation responsibility now go to council and not me?
Okay, so I think we've got some commentary from the Director of Corporate.
Thank you. Councillor King, this policy is in relation to council's social media platforms, not necessarily individual ones owned by councillors. About
There's a whole section.
comms and engagement manager is wanting to buy in here.
Both the model policy from the OLG does include elements on councillors' use of social media as well.
From a Defamation Act point of view, the person who is the publisher is the person who is responsible. So council is responsible for its platforms. You as councillors who manage your own pages outside of council become publishers, and that's where the Defamation Act extends to you as councillors, and that's why the OLG has put in their advice about what you can and can't do to ensure that you're not breaching that act.
Sorry, so that's kind of what my understanding was, which again is why I don't understand why we need this policy and for councillors, because there's a whole section in there specifically for councillors. And councillors is not employees or contractors. So there's a whole different set of rules for us under those agreements. So because I'm a publisher, I'm personally liable for whatever I do online. So that's kind of my point. Why is councillors also, I completely understand the organisational side of the policy, but there's a section in there specifically for councillors, which is essentially public people. Our reputation is based on our opinion in public. So I kind of feel like this is restricting what I can say publicly, even though I don't benefit of any of the protections from council as an employee would. You see where I'm getting at? Is the section for councillors in this policy necessary is what I'm trying to get to.
Can I? Yeah, sorry, put it over to manager over there. Yep. Manager of communication.
So I just need to clarify which section, because this is actually replacing a previous policy. The previous policy also applied to councillors in some sections. So this isn't a change from the existing policy framework we have in place. It does introduce new rules though, or sorry, it reflects the rules that exist.
Do you want when I find it? Sorry, can I come back to you when I find it? I'll just look it up because I don't have it open in front of me. I'll find the section and come back to you if that's okay.
Sure.
Thank you.
All right, Councillor Hill.
Thank you, Mayor Watton. I wasn't going to speak initially because my points are mainly in regards to the the foreshadowed motion that has been put up, and so I may retain my comments as they're not relevant to the current motion being debated.
Councillor Pascoe. Just while you're gathering your thoughts, can I just ask a question, Director of Corporate or Manager of Governance or Manager of Comms? Regardless of what we do, we're still banned by a code of conduct, correct? and we're bound by Office of Local Government requirements. So if there was to be some disputes, the mechanism would be there to challenge, for lack of a better term, the Office of Local Government, because the policy exists regardless of what we're doing internally here. Does that make sense, what I'm trying to ascertain?
Through you, Mr Mayor, I think what you're talking about is the conduct of councillors being overseen by the Office of Local Government. So in terms of a policy, the Office of Local Government has set out a model policy that they think is in the best interests of councils and councillors. If there is a breach of the social media policy, it could also be a breach of the Code of Conduct, in which case then the Code of Conduct procedures apply, which include potentially referring a matter to the Office of Local Government for review.
So a model code, but not necessarily mandatory. Would that be correct? Or was it mandatory?
That's correct. It's not a mandatory model code. It's one that was issued by the Office of Local Government, and we are required under the Local Government Act to take account of that. So the policy that is presented here has been adjusted for council, our Cessnock council's procedures, but generally reflects the model policy which has been adopted by a number of councils across the state.
Okay, thank you. So, Councillor Jerd, just before I go on though, like any other policy, if there's amendments can be made at a later track. If we adopt this, then we could change the policy effectively because it's not mandatory by the Office of Local Government. Does that make sense?
Your policies are able to be amended.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Jerd.
I use my social media a lot. Pretty much everybody here would know that. And I cannot monitor my Facebook 24/7. I am one person that is working as well as doing council role, and I know that there's other people sitting around me that are probably even busier than what I am. My question though is, I've already had issues with code of conducts from things that, might not have been said. What I want to know is if a resident comments on something that I post that might not be me have an opinion, for example, putting up the agenda for tonight's council meeting and what council is wanting to get with their report, and if a resident writes on there that they think council's doing a terrible job or absolute rubbish that report is, and says some really not so nice things but aren't swearing or aren't directly having a go at any person in particular, but just stating that they don't agree with that report and why, would I get a code of conduct?
As the publisher, like if there's defamatory remarks, is my understanding, and I'm hoping that correct me if I'm wrong, but if you're the publisher and there's someone in the comment section that's making defamatory remarks, I've had to hide things. I'm like you, I have to monitor my own social media. It's making me rethink my strategy there. What I do if I turn off comments or whatever. Is there any further commentary that staff might like to make?
Yeah, I was going to say the exact same thing. As a publisher, you do have obligations. Previous councillor memos have been circulated in this regard and can be found on the hub. The moderation section of this policy relates to council pages. So just want to make that clear in terms of the application of this policy. The moderation is for council pages, and I think the policy makes that clear. But obligations absolutely exist as a publisher.
Okay, so I just want that clear that I won't get a code of conduct if I miss someone's comment having a go.
More like hey, I think it'd be the process would be general manager or almost whoever would come. Hey, I think you've got a comment that you may want to delete, or
Well, I don't
without going through the whole.
leave comments up there that I think are quite nasty. like, but I don't also want to approach on people's freedom of expression, you know, because once you start hiding comments and deleting people off your social media platform, then next thing you know, I've got a whole heap of trolls because they're saying you don't let me speak.
And it's a difficult place to be in. Sorry not to speak over you there, but yeah, it's when you're the publisher, or it's your page and it goes unchecked, you're endorsing effectively what's being said.
Well, I can't. I still
Not
can't.
to mean to enter in debate here as the chair of the meeting, but that's just fact and figure of it all.
Yeah. Well, I still can't support to actually adopt it because I don't have trust in the fact that this ain't going to get me in trouble. I do not sit on my phone 24/7, and I am not going to be sitting on my phone 24/7 or worried about what I'm posting, letting people express what they think, because I'm supposed to represent the community as a whole, so I need to hear both sides of the argument, and I still feel like if I adopt that, that is going to put me in a position where people are not going to be able to tell me what they really think.
It might be a good discussion for us councillors to discuss when we do have further discussions, just about how we can actually engage with our community, because not everything has to be done through Facebook comments. It's one of the most frustrating things in the world. There's other avenues. It could be private message, text, good old-fashioned phone call. Never beats anything. Just moving off debate, so Councillor Hill.
Just a question, if I could, Mayor Watton, whether or not council staff currently have any plans to provide any form of, I guess, professional development for councillors if this policy is adopted, so that we are all given an opportunity to, I guess, have some additional instruction to ensure that what we're currently doing on our councillor social media pages is in line with the new policy, to save people being caught up just because they have misinterpreted or not fully understood the policy in its entirety. I think it may be a benefit to us, I guess, the 4 new councillors as well who were in the room after the fact of our previous professional development at the start of the term.
Well, I don't know how to put it through to Director. Yep, Director.
I'll take the easy ones. Certainly, Councillor Hill, we can look at getting some sort of training involved and offer to those councillors that are interested. Obviously, it's a voluntary type thing to come along, but I would urge everyone to get involved.
Councillor Pascoe.
Thank you, Mayor Watton. Just a quick clarification. This policy is already in place. We're just updating it in line with the OLG. Yeah, so we already have a social media policy. This is just a quick update. Yeah, and as long as we're in line with our code of conduct, which you already signed up for, everything stays the same, basically.
Yeah, and you could make reference to the fact that state and federal government doesn't need to do the same thing. Maybe I think state and federal are both the same with that respect because of privilege, but sometimes you've got to take the high road and lead, right? So just be mindful. Councillor George had a question. And I've got Councillor Lee.
Another thing as well, Facebook's upgraded their server, right? So if I put a post up and it gets shared, I can't see who shared it. So if somebody shares it, let's just say you, Mayor, shared it, and someone wrote something on there and I don't see that you shared it because it won't show me that you're the one that shared it, would I still be liable? Because I can't see who shared my post.
Totally not an expert in this, but I think the argument would be if it's something defamatory, you could either remove the content so it can't be
But
shared.
I can't see it. I don't know who shared
It'll have to be
my...
brought to your attention if someone's going to take it further.
Yeah.
You'd have to be made aware of something if there was an issue.
That's why this policy doesn't work.
Yeah. Councillor Lee.
Thank you. Just building off something Councillor Hill just said there in regards to a question he asked around any potential training or development for councillors. Office of Local Government Learning and Development do offer social media policy training for councillors. I've just had a quick look now. There's another 3 sessions available for councillors this calendar year. Perhaps it's something to consider. We have a number of new councillors in the chamber and first-term councillors. So I think a valid question, and perhaps they can help answer some of the valid questions that have been raised here tonight. But other than that, that'll close the debate.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Lee. I will now put the motion forward as written. All in favour? Councillor Dunn? Yes. Dunn, Harrington, Hill, Lee, Bangura, Palmowski, Pascoe, Hawkins and Watton. Those against is Dixon, Jerd, King and Franklin. That's carried. Good discussion about that, so we'll keep talking about that one. CC 35 2026, the review of the delivery program 25 to 29, the quarterly budget review statements, quarter 3 from the 31st of March. Could I have someone to please move that item? Councillor Lee, seconded. And someone a second, please. Thank you. Councillor Harrington, just because I never look over that way. Now I've got, I had someone speaking, I don't anymore. Yep, you have reserve your right. Councillor Jerd.
I did actually have an alternate motion for this one as well, which, I mean, I printed it out for all councillors to have in front of them, so I was a bit more prepared this time. That Council 1 receive and note the quarterly 3 budget review and delivery program progress report. 2 defers adoption of the proposed changes to the operational plan, and 3 requests an urgent further report to the next ordinary meeting that includes a full breakdown of the 3.7 million worsening in the operating deficit, all realistic options to reduce or estimate the 29.5 million deficit, projected deficit without a special rate variation, a revised and fully costed capital works program with clear priorities, and a community impact statement on any proposed rate rises.
Okay, so have someone to second that. Yep. So I just need a seconder if we want to table that.
It's amendment, yes.
Yeah.
Procedure defer. Yep. So we have someone to second that. Okay, it's lapsed, so we've got no seconder. Now we move back to the original. If I could just get back up on the screen so everyone's aware what we're discussing. Thank you. Okay, so moving back up to the original recommendation. Any discussion?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
Councillor Jerd.
I can't support this quarterly 3 budget review in its current form. In just 3 months, Council's projected operating deficit has blown out by another 3.7 million, taking the full year forecasted to 29.5. That's a very large deficit for our community to carry. Even the responsible accounting officer only certifies the financial position as satisfactory. If Council is successful with its special rate variation application, and that's not a reassuring statement. So, yeah. I don't even know why I bother.
Is there any further discussion? Can I just ask a question of governance? Is it, we couldn't defer a full operational plan, am I correct in saying that? But also we could move options in and out, correct? But I'll get some clarity from the CFO.
The statutory requirement for the quarterly budget review statements is they must be adopted and passed by council before the end of May and then updated to the Office of Local Government. So you could defer updates to the operational plan, absolutely, but you cannot defer adoption of the quarterly budget review statements. Council, at their discretion, is able to accept the changes proposed or not accept the changes proposed for the QBRS, but ultimately to not breach the Act, you need to adopt it.
Okay, thank you, CFO. Is there any further discussion? No further discussion? All right. Councillor Lee? No. We'll put it forward for a vote. That's the original as written in the papers. All in favour? So Councillor Dixon, Dunn, Harrington, Hill, Lee, Pangura, Franklin, Pomorski, Pascoe, Hawkins and Watton. Those against is Councillor King, noting Councillor Jerd's stepped out for a moment. That's carried. Okay, now moving on to report CC36. It's the placement of integrated planning and reporting documents for public exhibition. Can someone to please move that? Councillor Lee, seconded. Councillor Pascoe. Discussion? There's no discussion. Okay, we'll put that forward for a vote. All in favour? So Councillor Dunn, Harrington, Hill, Lee, Mangura, Pomorski, Pascoe, Hawkins and Watton. Those against? Councillor Dixon, Jerd, King and Franklin. That's carried. Okay, moving on to CC37, Local Government Remuneration Tribunal. The annual fees payable to Mayor and Councillors from the 1st of 2026 to 30th of June 27. Speaking Councillor King.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a alternate motion I'd like to move that I borrowed from my colleague Mitchell Lee from last year. It pretty much says that we freeze pay across the board for councillors and the mayor and the deputy mayor's fees. So I hope everyone could agree that what we discussed last year is probably still relevant at this moment regarding our financial position in council. Thanks. That's okay. I would like, hang on. I would like to add an extra dot point there as well, if I could, from discussions earlier. Just trying to think of how to word this. That this motion, if adopted, stands for the rest of the council term. Would that make sense?
So we're freezing the allowances for mayor, deputy and councillors for the remainder of this term?
Yeah, of this council term.
Okay.
That way we don't have to come back every year. Someone pointed out to me and do this again and again. Thank you.
Do you have anything you wanted to add there while you're speaking to the motion? Yep. Councillor Jared, are you happy to accept that dot point? Adopt it? Okay, so that's what we're discussing. Councillor Hill?
Thank you, Mayor Watton. I just wanted to touch briefly on the argument put forward from councillors in this instance and historically around the argument for this fee to be frozen for the intention of maintaining financial sustainability or assisting in helping our financial sustainability question at council. I might like to put the question, I guess, unfortunately he's the one that moved it, so he can be the target of my question, Councillor King. With the argument behind freezing the fees being around trying to improve councils and assist in improving councils' financial position, is there, I guess, what would be your argument against implementing the minimum fee of $16,500 instead on the same grounds? I guess that would be additional savings to council.
So that's a question to Councillor King.
Yep.
Can you repeat the question, please?
What would being that you, I guess, put forward as a part of your argument for the freezing of these fees that it will help council's financial sustainability issue currently? It seemed to be us acting in the right way. what would be your counter-argument to why you would not then propose for us to adopt the current minimum fee outlaid, it being $16,420?
I would not oppose that. I would go for zero if we're allowed to.
But you've not put that forward, you've put forward a freeze.
Because the last time we've done this, there wasn't enough support that I picked up that we can go for the minimum amount. I'm happy to put it forward right now if everyone's willing to accept it.
You don't think that's a detriment to councillors and the time that we put into the role that we would be dropping their remuneration?
Not at all. I think it's a matter of principle. We can't ask our residents and ratepayers for a 40% increase when they get zero extra value in the services that council provide, but we as councillors expect to get a pay increase every year. And we are responsible for council's financial position.
Do you think councillors have the ability for councillors to provide a service to the community is affected by the remuneration that's provided to them by council?
I might have to pull it up there to throw
Are we free to,
some point of
are
order.
councillors
You're
not free to
actually
debate
debating.
with each other in the chamber?
Well, you're debating. You've gone past questioning more
Yeah,
to
but
debate.
I'm free to debate other councillors in the chamber, am I not?
Yeah, are you proposing to put an amendment and put it to the mover and seconder?
I'm just interrogating Councillor King's current position on the motion.
Interrogate.
Yeah, no, well, yeah.
Look, I'm happy for you, Councillor Eel, to move amendment and put forward the minimum amount if that's
No,
what
that's
you wish.
not
I
my
will
intention.
support
That
it.
was my question to you, though. But if I'm not allowed to debate other councillors across the chamber on the issue, I'll...
Can I might have to jump in here, and I think we all understand what this role takes as councillors. I know with my role, I mean, we all don't get into this side of things for the money. I believe in, freezing things, but I also know how much time, effort that goes into this role. And I think, the point you're trying to come across with Councillor Hill is, I understand where you're coming from and trying to understand the premise there, but there's already a lot of people here that put a lot of time, effort and energy into it, and I believe that under the right circumstances, when sustainability is achieved or, finances are a lot better than what they are, then maybe we could look at increasing. I'm not going to enter into debate either because that's not good practice as a chair, but I think just to clarify the point that everyone's trying to make is the fact that we're trying to stand in solidarity and do the right thing in this instance. I think that's what we're trying to get to there. Let's move through councillors, if you've got some discussion on that. So Councillor Bangura.
Yeah, I've just got a question for Councillor King. He mentioned the rate rise. If he's thinking of freezing the councillors' allowance, if tomorrow council decide to increase that, wouldn't that be a problem? Wouldn't that take us back to the same issue with the rate rise?
So I need to clarify your question. So are you proposing that
Just
Councillor
wanting
King is
to clarify
looking
that
to increase?
for me. Yeah.
It's more so freezing the allowance to what it is instead of increasing. So the amounts that are there, he's suggesting that they don't increase to what's been suggested as for the term of council, and looking to freeze that for the entirety of the term. So annually in this role, it's a very awkward thing that councillors have to do, but they vote on their allowance.
My concern around that is that he mentioned the rate rise, and for a certain period, Cessnock City Council did not increase the rate. We kept waiting until we're here now, and we got to deal with this. So if he's referring to that example and freezing and proposing to freeze this, what's the solution after?
Councillor King, you don't have to answer unless you want to get some clarity.
I don't completely understand your question, Councillor. And I don't want to insinuate that you're confusing the two, but it sounds to me like you may confusing what councillors get paid our remuneration, which is what we're debating here right now, and the special rate variation. I was using it as a comparison where I don't think it's the right thing for us to do as leaders of Cessnock City to give ourselves a pay increase when we're in a financial position where we can't add any extra value to the LGA. It doesn't seem right to ask ratepayers to essentially fork out. I know we're not there yet, but we've put it out that we want to ask ratepayers for a 39.9% increase in their rates, and they get nothing extra for it. That's just to make council financially sustainable, so it wouldn't be the moral correct thing to do to give ourselves a pay rise in the midst of that.
To do it. By all means, I'll go for it, but at the end of the day, you went back to the rate rise. So I guess you are kind of trying to confuse me a bit with that.
Yeah, again, I'm sorry, I don't understand your question. If you could ask it in a different way, perhaps I could try and answer it for you.
That's a better way I can do it. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you.
Okay. Do you have any further questions, Councillor, or discussion? Councillor Bangura?
No further question.
Okay. Councillor Jode?
I was just going to try and answer her question because I think I understand what she's trying to ask. And correct me if I'm wrong, what we're voting on right now is just freezing our rate, like our allowance, for the whole of our term, so until we're no longer elected. What Councillor Kin is talking about is the reason why he believes we should not up our allowance is because we've asked people to do a special variation. Is that what you were asking?
No further comment, Councillor Judd. Thank you.
Okay. Right, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bangura and Jode. Councillor Dixon?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to put my 2 bobs worth in. As a single woman who's paying off a mortgage, I think as councillors we all give a lot of our time, as well as we also incur a lot of expense, whether that's driving around or doing printing out paperwork, reading. After tax, like it might be $27,000 a year, but after tax it doesn't turn out to be that much money at all. And I'm happy to have a freeze because, as Councillor King said, we can't expect the ratepayers, and I'm a ratepayer myself, we all are, to be forking out more money and then giving ourselves a raise. But I do think we do deserve some amount of money. And I feel that what we're getting at the moment is satisfactory payment for what we do. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dixon. Is there any further discussion? Put it forward for a vote. So just making sure that we're aware that's all 4 points. So for the whole term. So those in favour. Councillor Dixon, Dunn, Harrington, Jode, King, Lee, Bangura, Franklin, Palmowski, Pascoe and Watton. Those against, Councillor Hill and 4? Okay, and those against, Councillor Hill. Okay, it's carried. Thank you. Moving on to report WI7. Okay, just excusing Councillor Hill. WI7 /2026, so Sustainable Communities Tidy Town Grants, Round 2, Skills and Environment Grants. Could I have someone to please move? Councillor Lee, seconded Councillor Harrington. Any discussion? Councillor Dixon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, I'll have to be voting against this again tonight because I'm sure all these organisations are worthy, but at the moment I don't feel we should be giving out grants to people and then asking other people for more money. So I'll be against this tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dixon, and just be mindful for all councillors, if you ever want to make an amendment or should I say a notice of motion concerning anything particular that we're regards to grants, we can do so as a councillor. Councillor Pascoe.
Thank you, Mayor Wotton. Sorry, I just realised I will need to submit a conflict of interest because my children's school is listed, so I'll get that filled in now. But it would be a less than significant non-pecuniary interest because I have no voting capacity or participation in the grants that are applied for.
Okay, so you're choosing to stay in the chamber. So non-pecuniary, less than significant.
Yeah, it doesn't affect my ability to vote on the grants. Sorry, I saw the preschool. I didn't realise the public school was listed as well.
It's okay. The LGA is only so big. A lot of active people in the community. Thank you, Councillor Pascoe, for that. Councillor Hawkins.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, just on that, I guess I would like to declare an interest as well in that my children go to St. Philip's Christian College. They're not in the senior school, which is why I didn't sort of trigger it, but I think I'll put in a less than pecuniary, non-pecuniary, less than significant declaration as well, just to be on the side of caution. I apologise for that oversight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hawkins. So you're choosing to stay in the chamber? Less significant? Okay. Is there any further discussion? No debate. We'll put it forward for a vote. All in favour? Councillor Dunn, Harrington, Lee, Bangura, Pamowski, Pascoe, Hawkins, did I see your hand? Yep, and Wotton. Those against? Councillor Dixon, Jerd, King and Franklin. That's carried. Now we need Councillor Hill back. He declared that interest. Just waiting for Councillor Hill. Okay, moving on to report WI8, 2026, the draft generic parks plan of management. Councillor Lee speaking.
Thank you, Mayor. Moving an alternate motion to that printed in the business paper. The minute taker should have a copy there, but I'll read it out as on screen. It is the council defers the matter until such time as the updated draft is tabled at a future Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Advisory Committee meeting, as per the resolution AACL M2 2026 of the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Advisory Committee on 6 February 2026, which was adopted as a resolution of the Ordinary Council on 18 March 2026.
Thank you, Councillor Lee. Seconded, Councillor Jerd. Would you like to speak further, Councillor Lee?
Been saving my voice for this one, Mr. Mayor. So just to be clear, this isn't about opposing the intent of the proposal at all. The report states that consultation occurred with the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Committee. However, I was the chair of the February meeting of that advisory committee. I believe Councillor Harrington attended, as she reminded me earlier as well. And whilst the matter was presented to the advisory committee, it was not endorsed or finalised in that meeting, and was instead intended to be returned to a future meeting after it was identified there are a number of changes that may have been required. So, yeah, to be returned to a future meeting for further discussion and consideration. That subsequent consultation or that subsequent meeting has not yet occurred, noting that the May meeting of that committee was an in-core meeting. So therefore, I feel if we were to go ahead as printed in the business paper, we would actually be going against our own resolution as we adopted in the March meeting.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Lee. Any discussion on that? Okay, we'll put it forward for a vote. All in favour? It's unanimous. Now, WI9/2026, the minutes of the Floodplain Risk Management Advisory Committee held on the 19th of March. Could I have someone to please move? Councillor Lee, seconded Councillor Hill. Any discussion on that? No discussion. Put it forward for a vote. All in favour? It's unanimous. Now moving on to business which written notice has been given. So we've got BN12 first, 2026. This is the Advocacy for Fair and Practical Primary Production Land Tax Exemptions. Someone to move that. Councillor King, seconded. Councillor Franklin. Councillor King.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to speak on an issue that goes to the heart of our region, our economy and our identity. The future of agriculture in Cessnock and across the Hunter. Primary producers are not just businesses operating on the land. They are families, employers, custodians of our rural communities, and the people who help feed our state and nation. Yet increasingly, many of these genuine farming operations are facing growing uncertainty around the administration of the primary production land tax exemption. At a time when farmers are already battling difficult seasonal conditions, rising operating costs and economic pressure, the last thing they need is confusion about whether their land will continue to qualify for exemptions designed to support agricultural production. This motion is about fairness, practicality and common sense. It calls on the New South Wales government to review and improve the administration of the primary production land tax exemption to ensure it reflects the realities of modern farming. Because the reality is, agriculture has changed. Many farming businesses today have diversified simply to survive. Across Cessnock and the Hunter, we see farming operations combining traditional agriculture with cellar doors, agritourism, farm gate sales, accommodation, and other complementary activities. Exactly as local and state policies encourage them to do, because they are the biggest draw cards for tourism in our areas and create local employment opportunities. These businesses are not abandoning agriculture, they are adapting to remain viable. A vineyard that also welcomes visitors is still a vineyard. A farm that sells produce directly to consumers is still a farm. A property offering accommodation to support farm income should not suddenly be treated as less legitimate in the eyes of government. We need a system that recognises the realities of regional enterprise rather than one that creates uncertainty through inconsistent interpretations or overly complicated compliance requirements. This motion also seeks clearer guidance for landholders, simplified processes for genuine primary producers, and stronger protections for small and family-owned farms from excessive land tax liabilities. Importantly, it calls for meaningful consultation with rural and regional communities before future changes are made, because too often decisions affecting regional Australia are made without properly listening to the people who live and work in these communities every day. We must ensure productive agricultural land use is encouraged and not discouraged by administrative complexity or uncertainty. And as land values continue to rise across our region, many farming families are finding themselves asset rich on paper while still facing the same seasonal financial pressures that agriculture has always carried. This is about ensuring legitimate primary producers are treated fairly and consistently. It is about protecting investment in regional agriculture, and it is about safeguarding the long-term economic strength and identity of our region. So I want to ask councillors to support this motion and recognise the importance for standing up for our farmers. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor King. Is there any discussion? Councillor Hill.
Thank you, Mayor Watton. I just have a couple of points I think to make clear in the lead up to voting on this matter. As all councillors can appreciate, it's been a very big agenda to get through the past week, and there's been definitely a lot of different areas to get across. I do have to sort of make it known that I'm not currently extensively researched on local land tax exemptions, and with it being primarily a state government issue, there's no doubt that we definitely make advocacy arguments to the state government on a number of issues that affect local councils, and this in particular may well, I can't argue either way whether it is or isn't an intensive issue across our LGA for regional landholders. I do hold some concern that I don't fully have the background and understanding of the current application of land tax exemptions and the way that it's administered to argue for or against a review of the current system. I guess the argument for me is that I don't know how and in which manner the current system is administered and applied. So can I really argue that I'd like it to be changed and reviewed? I understand that recently there's been a number of motions put forward for advocacy to the state government, and a lot of those are pretty straightforward. We'd like to see an upgrade to an intersection, or we'd like to see safety improvements, and it's a pretty standard off the back of the napkin agreement from councillors that we all understand that that's needed. My concern is that at this current time I don't fully have the background and the position to make a decision on whether I believe the current policy is not acting as it should, or whether it needs to be changed, or how in fact it needs to be changed at all once implemented. I know that perhaps this is beginning to reach a little further into the state government's field of what it looks after, which I think is a lot of stuff we deal with at council, but I just don't currently feel fully comfortable in putting support behind a motion that I'm just not entirely capable of sort of making a decision on at this time.
Thank you, Councillor Hill. Councillor Jerd.
Thank you, Mayor. Can you correct me if I'm wrong? Is this not just asking, like sending off a letter to the state government to have a look at this?
That appears to be the intention of the notice of motion.
Don't we do that all the time over things that we don't fully understand?
It's good to have a good understanding of what you're voting for. I think it's good practice as a councillor, so I can't.
There's a lot of things that we send off with to get information back. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of us that don't know every bit about roads or every little bit about planning, and we advocate for the community for that. I see this as standing up for our residents and we have a big lot of residents in our LGA that are from the vineyards. It's our biggest,
Second line, well, it's,
employer,
the oldest.
employer, isn't it, for the area?
Just behind healthcare and tourism.
Why would we not support them when they're our biggest employer? If they're saying they're struggling and all that, why would we not write off to our state members or our state ministers to have a look at this? I think it's a great thing that Councillor King's brought to our attention. You know, it's only about advocacy. It's not about changing anything. It's about getting them to look at it. That's what we're supposed to do, represent our community, is it not?
Yeah, no, thank you, Councillor Jerd. I will mention that I was at a Hunter Valley Wine Tourism Association committee meeting, and they were mentioning that they were heavily involved in advocacy, just for benefit of discussion here tonight. And they are fully supportive of this notice of motion. If it adds context at a more local level, and it's been led by New South Wales Wine, but they do appreciate the support of Councillor King's notice of motion, a bit of local context. Councillor Hawkins.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Look, I'm happy to support this. I think that any support we can give to organisations or sections of our community. I guess I would just have the question, have other councils already moved this? Is it a concern across the state for local government that representing our landowners, primary producers and that sort of thing, it doesn't seem like a very original or scary or cumbersome sort of thing. It seems it would be most rural councils would be putting forward something like this. We often receive things from local government New South Wales that are asking for support, or various political groups.
LGNSW or ALGO or something similar.
I can't speak to it, and I'm aware Singleton are having similar discussions because the impacts it's having in the wine industry is across boundaries. So I'm familiar with that through the Wine Tourism Association.
Yeah, I can just see more of this. I mean, it usually happens in the election cycle. As we get closer to a state election, we sort of branch into more state-related sort of activities. But I can see something like this affecting more than just our LGA. It'll affect regional communities right across New South Wales. So don't be surprised if we see regional candidates bringing forward these sorts of things. So I guess if our council is on the front foot in supporting those parts of the community, then others should logically follow. So I'll be supporting this one. I think it's a good one.
Thank you, Councillor Hawkins. Just mindful you'll be wrapping up debate, so unless there's a question to your own nom. Is there any other discussion before Councillor King ends? Councillor King.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I do appreciate the councillors that does support looking after our farmers, but I just wanted to provide a bit of personal context from my point of view how this has come about. I've actually had a farmer here ring me about this a couple of weeks ago, bringing this to my attention because I was completely unaware of it. And then after I actually put this to council, a different mother and father farming couple approached me about their council rates. I won't go into details for their privacy, but council is at the moment busy looking at all of the agriculture or farming rate structures to assess them pardon me, on their periodic time frame, whether they still fall into the farming category, and some of them that diverse their businesses, similar to this, will now go into the business category, meaning they pay higher rates. So I brought this as a different level of advocacy to the state government because I will be doing my best to try and help them on a local level, but I think this is setting our local farmers up for a perfect storm where if they get reclassed from farming to business, they pay higher rates, then there's the possibility of a nearly 40% rate hike. Plus, if council determines that they move from farming to business, there's a good chance that Revenue New South Wales might use that as evidence to revoke their land tax exemption as well. And that could be in, $100,000 that farmer then needs to come up with for the state tax to pay, plus the $20,000 they've got to pay on council rates. So my concern here is to be proactive because I fear that if it becomes financially unviable for growers in our LGA to keep growing grapes, we will lose the biggest draw card for tourism in our LGA. I mean, there's no other reason people come here to stay in Airbnbs and fancy hotels other than the vineyards and the wineries and the experiences they get from that. Not to mention the employment they provide our LGA as well. So it's a double-pronged attack to try and support our farmers and do what we can before it's too late. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor King. Is there any, well, there's no further breaks, you've finished it, so we'll put it forward for a vote. All in favour? It's unanimous. Okay, moving on to report BN 13/2026, the East Cessnock Flying Fox Camp. Can I have someone to please move that? Might give Councillor Bangura the chance to move it. So Councillor Bangura, would you like to move? Yep. And someone to second, Councillor Franklin. Speaking, Councillor Bangura.
I'll read in the motion. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that Council resolve this motion and number one, formally write to both the New South Wales State Government and the Federal Government requesting that work in collaboration with Council to develop a long-term sustainable solution for the East Cessnock Flying Fox Camp. Number two, advocate for coordinated government approach to assist local communities affected by the flying fox camp, ensuring both environmental conservation and community well-being. Number 3, request that the state and federal government explore funding opportunities, expert advice, and legislative support to help mitigate the impact on residents while ensuring compliance with conservation law. Number 4, report to Council on responses received and next step for ongoing collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bangura. Is there any discussion on that? Can I just ask a point of clarity from just my perspective, Councillor's benefit? This is currently on Crown land, just going back to the Director's report, and also our delivery program. So I guess, can I ask a question about how successful we've been in the past on funding for this and why we haven't been, or any feedback as to why we haven't received much, if any, funding on this matter? That'd be a fair question to ask. Through to General Manager.
I'm rapidly learning about flying foxes. I'm happy to take that on notice. My understanding was several years ago there was some grant funding that was provided, and we provided pool covers and car covers and some of those kind of things, which is one of the actions. Then the federal government, my apologies, the state government's grant funding for that was no longer made available. We've recently been in touch. I think we had a request from Councillor King with DECWA around the Flying Fox Management Code and seeing if there was additional funding. So our staff have a meeting, I understand, next week to further those conversations in relation to funding being made available by both Crown Lands and DECWA to assist at the moment, because the numbers, I understand CSIRO do the quarterly monitoring, and the most recent data shows that generally sitting in the under 10,000 numbers is normally what we see with the population across that area. It's ballooned up past 50,000 at last count. So it's a significant issue, and because of that, we're getting quite positive feedback. But if councillors can indulge, we'll finish that meeting next week, and then we'll send out another note to the councillors in relation to our success, together with writing to the other agencies and ministers in relation to this notice of motion.
Thank you for that. Just for the council's benefit, what I was referring to in the delivery program was on page 543, under 3.2.1. Councillor Harrington.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to thank Councillor Bangura for raising this this motion here tonight. I spoke to you, Mayor, prior to last meeting. I had been in contact with a local resident and I missed the cut-off for the agenda and was going to make it a motion of urgency, basically due to the, we talked about the electricity cuts. I do believe those things have been rectified, but it is still a major issue impacting those residents of East Cessnock. And as the Director said, those numbers have increased dramatically since Council formulated their Flying Fox Camp Management Plan back in, I think it was 2019, So the data used to formulate that plan has obviously changed dramatically, and I know that there is monitoring, and though I did have trouble trying to find the link for the annual monitoring of the number of flying foxes. That plan of management has nowhere, I read through it, there is nowhere where there are triggers to start the actions to meet the issues that the residents face. So anything that draws attention to our local members, because this is because of the situation, well, because it's under two different legislations, state and federal, and because it's on Crown land, yeah, I think that anything that Councillor Bangura and this council does to draw attention, because those residents have been reaching out and been given the same information as we have, that, you know, that those funding sources have ceased, but these people are living in atrocious conditions, and those children are going to a school with that right behind their playground. So thank you, Councillor Bangura, and let's see what the result is from this advocacy.
Thank you, Councillor Harrington. Councillor Pascoe.
Thank you, Mayor Watton. Just a quick question for probably one of the directors. With regards to exploring funding opportunities, the funding opportunities, from what I can gather through the different memos we've had, are they just to support residents with things like car covers and not necessarily a solution to move the bats?
Put through to General Manager.
As I understand it, yeah, we want to explore, we believe, given that they're the landowner and there's basic maintenance work, there's no, at this point in time, there's no real understanding why all of a sudden you get a peak, and it's been indulged as the grey-headed flying fox, which apparently is what we see predominantly, but at the moment what we've had is the little red flying fox. A cute little name, but not so much for the residents. That's almost quadrupled in population. So we're asking them, what is that and why is that and what can you do about that, and is there anything else that we and or residents can do? So I'm happy to take that on more notice and come back to the councillors, because the funding grant that's were available was literally for those covers and more minor. I think, look, there was dryers provided so people could do their clothes drying inside and those kind of things, but they were limited to 2,500 per shot. So they weren't really significant, but they were removing nuisance value, not addressing that spike in population.
So because they are endangered, there's not necessarily a way for us to move them on, but there's a way to potentially mitigate.
So we'll explore some of that, because some of the elements around trimming branches and doing those things which can be done are not. The Crown Lands and the Flying Fox Management Plan for this area doesn't allow for that, and there's specific reasons, but I need to explore that with the staff.
Beautiful, thanks.
Yes, the funding that has been previously was to those more in the realm of the car covers and pool covers and things like that. Recent discussions with DECWA and Crown Land indicate that they may have funding to assist in more management of their land type exercises that may or may not help the situation.
Councillor Jerd.
Thank you, Mayor. So we know the flying foxes are protected by state and federal laws. Will this NOM help to get our state member Clayton Barr and our federal member Dan Rapicoli to push for law changes to be able to actually do anything about the bats?
Oh, the motion talks about writing to New South Wales State Government and Federal Government, so yeah, local MPs.
Is there
Do you
a
want
way
to speak anything different to that? No.
So that will sort of be added into it, that we really want them to look at it, because this has been a long-standing issue.
You've got Crown Land and you've got state funding that's needed.
I know we've got Crown Land, but it's not a council issue. So it's like at the end of the day, it's trying to push it on to who really can make changes, which is Crown Land, state and federal. So we really got to push, because this has been going on for how many years? I know this was an issue prior to my term on council. I'm just hoping that that's what this is really going to push.
I'm happy to undertake, but we'll write also to the local members in relation to whether it's a federal or a state agency that we write to. We'll provide copies and seek their support to follow that up.
Thank you.
Councillor Hawkins.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Look, I think we need to be conscious, I guess, of not offering false hope to people that there is a huge amount that we can actually do with regards to moving on a flying fox camp. This isn't a unique problem to us. It's not a one-off. It's a very real problem, and I think people are frustrated. They're living in terrible conditions. They're just desperate, I suppose you would say. So I think any assistance we can be for them, whether you it was said, minimal, that is a car cover or a clothesline cover or some air conditioning support for those sorts of things, I think that'll make a huge difference. At this point in time, I think people, any little difference is what they're crying out for. So I would commend Councillor Bangara for bringing this back up to council. It's not the first time we've advocated on behalf of our residents. Unfortunately, it won't be the last time, I guess, that we go into bat for them, just to keep reminding state and federal governments that there is an issue, and whatever assistance comes available, we want to grab a hold of it with both hands. So I think the people in that part of town will be grateful for our support, and I certainly think it'll be good to help it whatever we can.
Councillor Hawkins, just to close debate, Councillor Bangura.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to point out that the notice of motion is not about blaming any government jurisdiction. It's about working with different government bodies to find a solution. Obviously, Cessnock City Council cannot solve it on its own. So it's all about asking for help so that we could support the residents, because they're classifying this as a pest. So I know that they are protected species, but it's causing more harm to the residents. Every day I'm getting complaints. So I'm asking for all the councillors to at least consider this motion and find a solution to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. So we'll now put it forward for a vote. All in favour? It's unanimous. Brings us to the end of council reports. Unfortunately, because the agenda was so big, I didn't get a chance to write anything myself. Happy to provide verbatim. Is there any other council reports from anything? Councillor Hill?
Judging for the time, I'll let any councillors have a look at that on the board there. It's just a report from my recent attending of the Budeye Quarry Consultative Committee on the 1st of May. One of the main points that I'll make clear, which should make this available in the minutes, is there a link there to Darracon's website where anyone in the public and any councillors can access all of the previous minutes, annual reports and PowerPoint presentations that are shown at these committee meetings. So please feel free, if you have an interest in digging rocks out of the ground, jump on and have a look at the previous minutes and reports of the quarry.
Thank you, Councillor Hill. Any questions for Councillor Hill with that? All good. We'll close the meeting.